Greetings, friends, and welcome to GameFace, episode 268 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. This is the flagship show of Sifted. We'll be here for the next few hours, whipping you around the world of games, talking about the biggest games and stories from the last week. Alongside me to do that is Matthew Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Not much.
How's your week
really
been?
Not much.
Really not much. It's brutal right now.
Waiting for, I think like Humankind is out today.
It is. Right? I wish I had got review code of that, but then I also wonder if I would have been able to even play enough of it to talk about it intelligently.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's a Civ clone, a Civilization clone. It's not actually a clone though. It does do a bunch of
it's a very different thing.
Stuff.
But it's a Civ like 4X kind of thing. Like it's not a play for an hour and tell you what you think game.
I'm actually kind of excited for it because I will finally be able to play a PC game on my couch using my Steam Link because it's a turn-based game, and you can obviously take as long as you want in between each turn if you want to. And with those games, I do. How about you, Matt? Do you sit there for like 10 minutes sometimes waiting and like contemplating what you're going to do?
No.
You don't?
I do not have analysis paralysis. No.
You just kind of steamroll through those
games? I generally
games?
know what I want to do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And even, sometimes I don't know what I want to do because I have just started playing the game, but I'll just think, I'll just do this. And if it turns out wrong, at least I learned something, right?
I'm very peculiar with those games. I'm like, oh man, this one move I feel like every move could just totally destroy the game. And so I'm very self-conscious about it. Like once I get into the game, I've been playing for a few hours. There are some turns where I'll sit there for like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, I've never done that.
I do it all the time. So anyway, that game is
30 seconds is about the limit to my turn contemplation.
Okay. Honestly, the whole rest of August after this week is just loaded with games. We've got Aliens Fireteam coming, Humankind, as we mentioned, Psychonauts 2 coming. The back half of August is stacked. But we have been just kind of puttering along here through the first half of August, and we are working for these shows. I think they're still fun and they're still good, but we're just not talking about the big blockbuster games like you guys may be used to. A couple things to go over, housekeeping stuff. This Saturday, we are doing a live Shane versus Super Mario Maker 2 stream. It kicks off at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. I will be playing your Super Mario Maker 2 levels. We'll see how it goes. I established last week that I will not play any of them more than 10 times in a row. If I can't get through it in 10 tries, we'll move on to the next one. But get those levels ready, get them polished. You got about 4 or 5 days left before that happens. And again, that's on Saturday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Also, tomorrow we are shooting Pactor Factor, so consider this the last call for Pactor Factor questions. You can find the place to submit those questions anywhere. If you go and follow us at Sifted Games on Twitter, there's a link there. There's a link on Sifted. There's a link on our Patreon. There's a place to submit questions on our YouTube channel. If you go to the community tab on our YouTube channel, millions of places to ask your questions. But when I get out of here tonight, probably going to cut it off because I'll have to start compiling questions for the shoot tomorrow morning. So you got about 4 or 5 hours to get your questions in before we cut those off. Let's see what's going on here on chat. See if anyone's given us any Twitch Prime early on. Oh, yep, there's some already. Wampler13, thank you for Twitch Prime. 44 months in a row. That is insane. Hype Train already at level 1. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Any others? Commander Fett, thank you for Twitch Prime. Don Lionheart, thank you for Twitch Prime. I think that might be it. Lesteved says, I purchased the highest Patreon tier. How does it work? Let's see. Well, if you're saying the highest Patreon tier, I'm assuming that you got the GameFace sponsorship tier, because right now the Pactor Factor party tiers are not on our Patreon because there's no Pactor party. We'll probably add those back when the year turns over because, God willing, E3 is going to be in person next year. So we'll probably add those back. So right now, like the highest...
Pactor's got 2 years of partying to do in one night.
And he's going to do it. Yeah. I guarantee it. So right now the highest tier is like GameFace sponsorship. So reach out to us or me at Sifted. Just go at Shane and send me a message and let me know what you want to do. You can sponsor anything you want. If you have a YouTube channel, you want to promote that, we can do that. If you just want to promote your Twitter handle to get more followers on Twitter, you can do that. Anything you want to promote within reason.
If you got some houses to sell in Montana.
Exactly. We'll take that too. But anyway, just reach out to me privately on Sifted or Twitter. You can send me a DM on Twitter if you want. I'm at Dinfire. But just reach out to me and we'll figure out what we can do for that tier. And most importantly, thank you very, very much. I really, really appreciate it. It makes a big difference for us, which is awesome. Let's see what else. If we got any more Twitch Prime in here. Nope, I think that's it. Oh, Listeved saying GameFace guest. So you want to come on GameFace. We will talk about that. We were actually going to have a guest next week on the show, but he just had to cancel. So he's going to be pushed into the next episode, which would be around the 31st. Another reminder, by the way, next Tuesday will be GameFace as normal. The next week, the show's going to shift a day or two because I have a doctor's appointment for my knee. I'm having knee surgery. I have an appointment that's on the 31st, which is Tuesday, and I cannot miss the appointment. And it's like right when we would be doing the show. So the show week after next could be Monday, it could be Wednesday. Matt and I need to figure that out. I need to work around his schedule and the schedule of the potential guests that we're having that week. But anyway, Listeved, just reach out to me privately, and we'll get it all sorted out, and we'll get you here on GameFace, which is pretty exciting. I think he's the first GameFace guest to hit that Patreon tier. So also, if you want to promote something while you're on the show, totally cool with that as well. We'll figure it all out in private. Let's see. Little Big Daddy is still there. Yes, he is sneaky. We haven't removed him yet. He's still there. I think that's it. I think we're ready to get into the show. We're going to kick things off with what was, surprise, surprise, the biggest story of the week, and not actually a huge surprise because rumors about this have been swirling around for a while. But Kotaku's, and I want to give credit to the person who reported this and did the and beat the pavement to get this story, Zach Zwiesen. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I've actually never heard his name before.
In German that would be correct, or Zwiesen.
Zwiesen, okay.
Depending on how Americanized that is.
Yep. Kotaku's Zach Zwiesen has reported that remasters of 3 Grand Theft Auto games are on the way. And not only are they on the way, Matt, they're coming in the fall. Early November is what he's reporting. He says they're coming.
A lot of GTA in one season.
It is. He's reporting.
If the GTA 5 update is also
the PS5 and series update. Yep. He said it's coming early November. PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, Switch, PC, Stadia, and mobile phones.
Wow.
It's insane. He did report that the PC and mobile versions might slip to next year. I guess it's the 20th anniversary of Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, 2001.
Time just flies. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
So they are the 3.
I remember having to drive down to the Millbrae Mall to get a copy of that from the GameStop because almost nobody got it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was
so
underground.
not interested. No one cared. Like we weren't even going to cover it on Extended Play.
The GameSpot people cared a lot, and I will say this about Jeff Gerstmann and Ryan Davis: they saw what Grand Theft Auto was going to become before a lot of people did.
Yeah, I did, but I couldn't convince anyone else on the show that it was. I had to go down and get it, and then I came back and played it in the game lab, and people were coming in all day, and be like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is the thing." Like I was trying to. I think I saw the article in Game Informer about it. I was like, "Oh, that's going to be special. That's going to be a big deal."
Yep.
And so it was. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be the big deal it was.
Or
it was
become.
Obviously, yeah. But I didn't know it was going to revolutionize what we thought of as video games the way it did. But I knew it was going to be something important.
My first impressions of Grand Theft Auto 3 was that I was disgusted by it. Like, I could see it was going to be huge, and I knew that a lot of people were going to like it, but I didn't want it to do well because, and I was wrong, obviously. I was afraid of the direction it was going to send the industry because this game, it wasn't like a half step. It was like just jumping straight over the line and peeing all over it. It just was so different from anything that had come before. It wasn't concerned at all about how it was going to be viewed by parents or the industry at large, which is why it was such a huge hit. It was a rebel video game.
Yeah, which is funny because really it's the same tonally and content-wise as the other three they already made.
But it's 3D.
But now it's in 3D, so you don't have to imagine. So I mean, look, I always thought the idea of GTA was great. But those first 3 games, if you 2 games and 1 expansion, if you want to call the London thing an expansion of the first game, like 1 and 2, I always found them pretty much unplayable mainly because they're top down and you can't see where you're driving.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean the graphics were so crude.
Yeah, it was very hard to understand what you're supposed to be doing most of the time.
Or what was even really happening.
Yeah.
When it comes into full polygonal 3D. Suddenly you're like, oh, wait a minute.
With presentation and voice acting.
Yeah.
Because before a lot of it was like,
Right.
it was just like text with like under it. And like,
yeah,
it had the music more or less, but like it was more of an idea in search of a presentational format, and they finally found it here. After prototyping it through Body Harvest, which was made by the same team, and don't let anyone tell you that Body Harvest wasn't a dry run for GTA 3, because it absolutely was.
Yeah. I mean, the design is all there already. They had built the engine.
Yeah, you can go. Rockstar and the Rockstar specific people can go on and on about how the GTA was their thing, but DMA Design figured out how this game was going to work in Body Harvest, which Rockstar had nothing to do with.
Well, DMA was Rockstar before they changed their name to Rockstar.
Well, Rockstar was
its
own. They became Rockstar North, but
right.
they were not owned by them. They were a separate development team doing their own stuff, and Body Harvest was one of those own stuffs.
Yep.
So it was, they were also doing the other GTAs, but they were just being published by Rockstar, and I always thought it was a little distasteful how Rockstar sort of took all the credit for this when it happened, to the point that they tried to sell State of Emergency on the back of this,
right,
which was by a completely different team.
And on the flip side, I just gave credit to Jeff Gerstmann and Ryan Davis for spotting how good how big of a deal GTA 3 was. I should also mention that they were all over that game. And they thought that it was like as good as GTA 3. Like,
nope.
I think Ryan Davis gave State of Emergency like a 9 or
That's
something.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
I gave that a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
And I believe I was correct.
I think you were correct on that one. Well, that was 2 out of 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, obviously, they were reviewing on the 10.
2 out of 5 out of 5, yes.
Yeah. 2.5 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
2 out of 5, okay. So they saw GTA 3 for what it was, but then State of Emergency for what
a lot of people did, but I will also give credit to Penny Arcade. The only great thing to come out of State of Emergency was the Penny Arcade comic.
I don't remember.
It was basically like Gabe was excited about it, and Taika was like, "What the hell is this?" And he's like, and he's like 2 hours later, he's like, "Maybe I can just tape the button down or something." And the last panel is him trying to return the game to GameStop. And the guy says, "You just bought this yesterday," and he says, "I'll buy you yesterday." It's like, that doesn't even make any sense.
I do remember that comic now.
And
actually.
Adam Sessler and I will do the "I'll buy you yesterday" thing to this day. Like we quote that at each other all the time. That became like a running gag. So I thank State of Emergency for giving me that.
Yeah.
But beyond that game sucked.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was really bad. We should have mentioned right off the top the 3 games that are reportedly coming: Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And they're saying that all 3 are coming in one package. So they're not going to be released separately. It's going to be
they've done
like
that before.
Trilogy collection.
Yeah. They did that on the original Xbox even.
Oh, really?
I think it was just 3 in Vice City.
I don't remember.
But I do have a pack of like at least 2 of them at some point, and I think they did do a trilogy pack eventually when they brought. Basically, they started porting the PC versions to the consoles once the consoles were strong enough to do that, and they were definitely improvements because they had full aim. The PC versions obviously put in mouse aim because you could do that, whereas the console versions of 3 and Vice City use that weird auto target, use the shoulder buttons to sort of jump between targets. You couldn't actually aim.
Yeah, you had to tap it to cycle. Yeah,
which was awful. Yeah. And San Andreas finally fixed that, but like San Andreas fixed a lot. San Andreas is probably still my favorite GTA, like of the whole series. I think that's where they hit the sweet spot really, and they've never quite gotten back to that.
Sneaky is saying it was 3 in Vice City, then San Andreas came to X1, then it was a 3-pack.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. That makes sense. Some other reporting from Kotaku on this. They said the visuals are going to be a mix of old and new. And they said the best way to consider it is it looks like a heavily modded GTA game, which I don't know how you incorporate old and new. That seems a little weird.
That's a hard thing. I mean, probably you'd be using new character meshes, but you might not be completely redoing all the buildings.
Maybe
you'd retexture everything, but you wouldn't necessarily remodel the whole city.
Okay.
That would
maybe
probably be
they revamp the character models, but not everything else.
Yeah, something like that. Anything you'd see close up. Maybe they'd redo some of the messier cars.
What about the facial animation for cinematics? Maybe?
I don't know. That's a good question.
There's a lot of X factors with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just you can't just like straight port the PC versions anymore. You'd have to really work on these. I mean, ideally, like 3 in Vice City would arguably have to be remade almost completely.
Which I do not see that happening.
No, I don't. I mean, like, and there's a lot. I'm interested to see what they would do in terms of like balance and like gameplay design, like. Because look, the Demolition Man mission in Vice City is still one of the most frustrating things I've ever played in a video game ever. That's the remote control helicopter thing we're trying to drop.
About that.
It is the worst thing in the entire series. Like, just it is just.
It has been the whipping boy
awful.
For a while.
Like, it's like that mission is one of the things when I think about replaying Vice City that I'm just like, yeah, no. Because it's like mission 12 or
I know,
it's early.
Like
it's like you hit this wall with
everyone
this thing,
has to do it,
and you have to finish it. It's a story mission. You can't just
it's not
leave
optional.
It. Yep. One thing I will say, at least starting with, I think it was San Andreas. Whoever worked at Rockstar that was obsessed with remote control vehicles, who then apparently left or was tied up in a closet and never allowed to design a mission again. Thank you, whoever did that. Thank you. Like, it immensely improved the franchise.
It's true. Some other information that we got from Kotaku's story, an updated UI makes sense because otherwise it's going to look awful.
Yeah.
At the very least, they just need to redo it so it's.
I'm curious about the music, like relicensing all the music, especially for like
too.
San Andreas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a ton. I mean, for Vice City and San Andreas, I think 3. The only real licensed music I can think of is that one station that just plays the soundtrack to Scarface,
right? Yeah.
Over and over, like that was. But I remember I used
that might not be hard to get either.
No, I remember I used the "Take It to the Limit" song in the review we did of the PC version on Extended Play, and I had to convince Annalise it was actually from the game, that it was a real song and not just like some weird thing I got out of the song library.
Oh, really?
She's like, that's a real song that was released by people? I'm like, yeah, like that's.
She had never heard the song?
She didn't know the soundtrack from Scarface by heart, no. But there's like that "Take It to the Limit," like that thing, and she's like, that's real. Why did you pick that song? I'm like, that's from the game. She's like, really? I'm like, I mean, it's not unrealistic to assume that I would pick something that cheesy, but I do love my weird '80s stuff. But like, she was like, it was kind of like when we did the Twilight Call of Duty like trailer thing, and I basically wrote part of the end of it where they just sort of summarize the events of the final book as like kind of the bookend for the skit. And like legal like sent it back to us and said, you can't just make up weird stuff that doesn't happen in the book and have to call that parody or funny. You can get sued for that. I'm like, I didn't make any of that up. That's all really what happens in the book. And they're like, really? I'm just like, yeah. So go ask these people. Like,
that's funny.
One of the VPs like was a fan of the books, and like, ask her. Like, and they're like, and she's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. And they're like, okay. I mean, it's like, it's stuff. That's some of my favorite misunderstandings are when it's like, no, we didn't make that. That's real.
S&P. Like, when things are so absurd that they just can't even believe it.
Yeah, that's probably even more of a problem these days, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yep.
Imagine trying to explain to like someone from legal who doesn't really fully understand pop culture what Deadpool is.
Yeah. Or imagine trying to make sure that you're staying on the right side of the law with like TikTok videos and all that. It's really complicated, fair use, and whether they're using fair use correctly, and then if you running their video is using fair use correctly, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, at a certain point, you just got to hope that there's a parachute in that knapsack and not a tablecloth.
That's true. One thing I think people may be disappointed in, and you may be because we just talked about it, is that the gameplay will mostly stay the same.
Yeah,
for these remasters.
Yeah, I will say that I would assume that the game, if you've only played the old console versions of 3 and Vice City, these would be tremendously improved.
Yeah,
because it wasn't until the PC version came along that you could aim.
Right. Yeah.
So, but like I said, I wonder about the balance and tweaks to the gameplay to maybe make them less insanely frustrating for a modern audience.
Yeah,
because some of that stuff requires a level of patience, or even just like auto saving. You know, like
that isn't required of a lot of games,
right? Like
games aren't required of the player.
Yeah,
anymore.
old GTA. If you died and you died and lost money and respawned at the hospital, but if you didn't want to lose that money, if you want to reload the save, you had to reload the last time you saved at one of your hideouts.
Yep.
Or like if you failed a mission, you got to start the mission completely. Mission checkpoints I think didn't start until San Andreas.
Yep. I think people are in for some unpleasant surprises with these games.
Infamous San Andreas mission where you got to get the train, you got to get Big Smoke to the train and all that stuff. Like everybody hates that mission too. There's a lot of stuff in there that hasn't aged too well.
A lot of people. I've seen people in chat already saying like, I didn't play these games. I didn't play 3, or half of them were like my first one was like Vice City, or a lot of them were like my first one was San Andreas. So, I think some people are going to be in for a rude awakening with these games.
Or like the fact that San Andreas is the first one where you could jump over fences.
Kinda.
It's
very awkward.
But there was still a method to vault over something
where
you couldn't before.
Yeah.
And it's the first one you could swim and not die when you touched water instantly.
Right, yeah. It is funny to think about all these contrivances.
Which was extra weird in Vice City because there were boats now. It was like so much of Vice City takes place on boats because it's Miami.
Well, it's like when people...
If you touch water, you insta-die.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you think back to that era, Matt, like... just running over people with a car was enough to like bolster a whole game. Remember Carmageddon? I remember going over to a buddy's house. He's like, "Look at this game I just got. It's called Carmageddon. You can just run over people." And that was like enough to entertain us for an entire night. Just running over people and watching how they flew.
People never played Death Race 2000.
Exactly. And then Grand Theft Auto 3 comes along. It's like you can do that and you can shoot stuff. It's like they're...
I remember when we used to do the thing where like, once I had to finish the game and had all the stuff and all the hideout where all the weapons would spawn and stuff, like you load up on the weapons, you put in the code that makes all the pedestrians get armed and go crazy and just run out and shoot things with rocket launchers until you died. Like that was see how long you could last. That's what my friends and I would do. Like we'd take turns doing that.
I also just realized that we're now going to get copyright strikes because I just ran a trailer for the last story DLC from a Grand Theft Auto game. Rockstar still copyright protects all its trailers. Still. After all this time. Even Nintendo at this point has like given it up. But not Rockstar. Rockstar still protects everything.
How dare you use our promotional material
to promote our video
your
games.
material.
Yeah, it's crazy. The final details on this stuff is that the games are being developed by Rockstar Dundee.
Oh.
Which is
good on you, mate.
Which oddly enough is in Scotland, where it all kind of started.
Oh, Dundee's. Yeah, okay.
Wasn't DMA in Scotland?
DMA
as well?
was Scotland. Yeah.
So it's
kind still are.
All come full circle. Ruffian, for reference, worked on Crackdown, like 2 and 3, and it also worked on the Master Chief Collection for a bit.
Ooh. Don't spread that around too much.
Yeah, so the pedigree...
At least there's no online play.
Right. The pedigree there isn't great. And then the final note was that if these remasters do well, the same studio, Ruffian, or Rockstar Dundee, will then work on a remake of the first Red Dead.
Oh, Godspeed, folks.
Yeah.
That thing is...
I would not
even the people who made Red Dead 1 don't know why it works.
Well, that's probably why they're shoveling it onto somebody else. They're like, "Here's it's your problem now." Like,
yeah, it is. That thing is apparent. I mean, by the admission of the people who made it, when we talked to them a bit at the DICE Awards, that game's code is held together with duct tape and string. Like it barely got made and functioned, and that's why there was no PC version, because that team got dissolved afterwards and no one understood the code well enough to go in. It would have been a huge undertaking to rip the whole thing apart and put it back together for PC, and so they just never did it. I
still remember the first day that we got that game, and I was astonished at what a disaster it was. I mean, it was one of the buggiest AAA games that I had experienced in like a really long time. And they never really cleaned it up.
No, it functions well enough, and I still like it.
You can finish the game.
I've played it twice. Second time when they made it backwards compatible on Xbox One, and it's gorgeous. Like it still looks good, and it plays better. It plays better on Xbox One. But yeah, it could use a new coat of paint.
I would not want to work on that project.
No, I Like
No
I
thanks.
wouldn't even intend to play that again probably, but I would still buy that in support of that ridiculous ambition.
Just because you knew the
just because
work
I
that
knew
they
what
had
they
to
had
do.
to go through to do that, I will buy that game, no question, just to support whatever team has to make that.
Yeah.
Rockstar Dundee, whoever it is.
Will you play these games again, Matt, with these remasters?
I will probably play San Andreas. Yeah, I like San Andreas a lot.
I do too. Yeah. I like the setting and the tone
Yeah.
of Vice City and
Yeah,
the music
same.
of Vice City.
Same. Oh yeah, same. But
But playing
Vice City, I gave Vice City a 4 out of 5 at the time, and I was
You were a
roasted
rebel.
for it.
Yeah.
But I maintain that game is not all that great in terms of, especially, I mean, GTA 3 was a 5 out of 5 because of what
It's
it
so
did. and all that.
groundbreaking, yeah.
But GTA Vice City was just a reskin, and they didn't fix any of the things I had problems with in GTA 5 and could overlook because of the revolutionary qualities
GTA 3, you
of
mean.
GTA 3, the revolutionary quality of GTA 3. But like, you could have made the aiming a little better, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's just, all the little things. And San Andreas finally gave us the quality of life improvements that should have been in Vice City, but we're not. And it was gigantic, and it covered like all of California, and it was about West Coast gangster rap stuff, which is stuff that was big when I was in high school. So I had a lot of nostalgia, and it was about my time. It was certainly wasn't how I grew up. I didn't grow up like CJ, obviously, but it was like it captured that moment, that moment in kind of pop cultural and cultural
NWA
time,
and all that stuff. Yeah.
It was great. Like driving along through Los Santos,
Rolling down the street, smoking
Indo,
Indo, sipping on gin and juice.
Like it's all in there.
It was the video game.
Yeah, absolutely. And going off the jumps to Welcome to the Jungle and all, absolutely. And then like just when you got tired of Los Santos, you end up in San Francisco and you go to Las Vegas. I mean, that game had you got a rocket pack.
Think about what they accomplished in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And now think about how long it takes Rockstar to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
What happened? I mean,
know.
games became more complicated to make,
sure.
but
it's also like,
dang, dude.
I remember when 5 came out, and I'm just like, well, they'll probably, I kind of expected, I think we expected remain a platform. It's like, and even if it was just GTA Online, I'm like, well, obviously they'll probably add like San Fierro later,
right,
and whatever the hell they call, was it Las Venturas? Is that Vegas?
Yep.
I figured they'd add that. I figured they'd expand the map and stuff because obviously
GTA Online took off, and that was it.
That was all they needed.
Yeah.
I would love to see San Fierro again. In modern
absolutely.
day.
Yep.
But I'll go back to San Andreas, no problem. There's a lot of stuff that's fun in that. Messing with CJ, making him big and muscular, and making him eat too much, and all that.
I could never create
Just
a
sheer
character
amount of
that I was happy with
customization.
in that game, though.
It's hard.
It's crazy to think, though. They had like a system where if you ate too much, your character model got bigger.
Yeah, and I did that. I used to do that. There were achievements for it, so I did. I put CJ through a lot of body horror just to get some achievements on the Xbox versions, as I recall.
It is kind of funny how stuff like that
maybe I was just doing that to be a dick.
and then it disappears forever in some cases and never comes back.
Yeah, and in the end, CJ ended up very muscular and thin. Because at a certain point, you got to play the game.
You got to run,
and you stop stopping into the burger joint every once in a while, and he gets super skinny.
Yeah, my dude was like a rail by the end of the game. Yeah, that's how it works. Matt, what if anything does this say about GTA 6?
Not anytime soon.
Yeah,
I mean we knew that.
Yeah,
I've been saying like we'll be lucky to get GTA 6 this gen.
It's crazy.
I mean we'll be playing GTA 6 somewhere around the same time we're playing Elder Scrolls 6.
I mean, it may be after that. Who
Could
knows?
be. And like the thing is, they can do that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because people keep playing GTA Online.
They're about to make boatloads of cash all over again because of
these
GTA
remasters
5 and these remasters,
and then them moving to PS5 and Xbox
I'm sure
Series.
the GTA 5 will be bigger, but and then maybe next year we'll get GTA 4. Like that's not as popular as 5, I wouldn't say. It's like it's probably the kind of the black sheep of the series.
Yeah,
like
a little bit.
People didn't quite know what to make of it. I still like it.
I think a big part of it is because the lead character just isn't as charismatic.
It's that, plus it's like it feels like it's a little closed in more gameplay wise, and I believe just Liberty City is not all that interesting.
I think
like we'd already done it.
I think there was too many people working on that game living in New York City when it was being made.
Yeah,
I think it impacted the development of the game too much,
right?
And made it a game that people who live in New York City would love, but people who don't live there or haven't visited there a ton
Yeah.
was a disconnect.
Yeah, it's just not really. I'm like, dude, if you call me to go bowling one more damn time, I get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do that, but then you lose relationship with your cousin because you don't want to go bowling every 5 seconds, and it's just like,
Yep. So anyway, there you go. Remasters coming, according to Kotaku, of GTA 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas in early November for everything but PC and mobile, which they're saying may slip into 2022. And still no word on Grand Theft Auto 6. Huzzah! All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about what was the biggest debut of the week, although the real debut is still coming. That is Call of Duty Vanguard. Another, Matt, there are so few surprises left in games anymore. So stories about this broke like a week and a half ago that there was going to be a big reveal for it on the 19th. And then as the days went on, more and more leaks started happening, more and more details started to emerge until yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Finally, Activision released the debut teaser trailer for the game. It is set in World War II. It is being made by, or led by, no one really makes Call of Duty anymore. It's like a team effort. But it is being led by Sledgehammer, which was also the primary developer behind Call of Duty World War II.
They're like weird, like a fungus. Like eventually you've just got a thing.
Yeah.
It all grows together.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the Assassin's Creed model.
Yeah, it's a giant machine.
But they've been inching towards this for years now with Call of Duty, and they're there. You really can't assign a game to a studio anymore. Used to be, I'd be like, hey, here's Treyarch's Call of Duty. And I like Treyarch's Call of Duties better than the other Call of Duty, and now they're just all blended together. Blended together so much, in fact, Matt, that already rumors have circulated that this game has had trouble in development, and therefore some of the content that was originally intended for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is now being cut from Cold War and moved into Vanguard. One of the zombies maps that was supposed to come in Cold War has been moved to this new game. Here's the interesting thing about this, Matt. How they are going to reveal this game. Have you heard about this?
No. This is a very strange way to present this.
Well, it's a teaser trailer.
But the faces are weird.
Well, it's like,
I guess it's supposed to be...
What is that kind of art called? Where if you look at something from just the right perspective, an image is created.
I don't know.
I wonder if there's even a name
I think
for
there is a name for it, but I don't remember.
I don't know what it is. So anyway, Matt, they are debuting this in a way that I don't think has ever been done before. They are revealing this on Thursday, August 19th, so 2 days from now, at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, inside Warzone. So it feels a little bit like the Fortnite stuff, but not. Basically, what happens is that I'm not even 100% sure because they've been kind of vague about it. But there's a full reveal inside Warzone on Thursday, as I said. Before that, there's a limited time double XP, double weapon XP, and double battle pass XP event. And then once that event concludes, the Battle for Verdansk kicks off. And somehow, some way, amidst the Battle of Verdansk, Vanguard is going to be debuted. I'm not sure if everyone's going to fight to a point where there's like a big TV screen and everyone like sings Kumbaya and stands around and watches a trailer together. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they haven't really released many more details about it, so we're just kind of left to wonder how it's going to work. What do you think about that?
I think I'll see a video of it later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go in there and do it either. But as far as like the marketing angle and like honestly the creativity involved, do you think that's a good idea of debuting a game that way? I mean, does it matter even?
No, it doesn't.
Because what's going to happen is as soon as that event is over, the trailer's just going to be up on Call of Duty's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So you don't have to actually participate.
And the real marketing will happen on sports telecasts and in the little, the online stores for the various consoles, and it's just a thing for
hardcore fans
to see it or whatever. And I thought they did something sort of similar, not like this elaborate, but didn't they like it premiere the last one, like Black Ops or something, and something like that?
I don't remember that.
It was some kind of online. I remember it was some kind of online thing. Like
I don't remember it. If they did, it's possible.
No, like this is way more involved. Like this is more of a Fortnite thing.
It's in a huge event. Yeah. So it does feel more like a Fortnite concert. And again, I'm just wondering if everyone's going to fight through this battle and then end up at a big stage with a big screen where everyone agrees not to kill each other for 2
Yeah,
minutes.
the chat's saying they did it with Cold War. It was just a trailer that played at the end of a mission.
Juan X Solo. I don't know. I don't remember it, though. It was just a trailer that played at the end of a mission everyone did in the map. It's not amazing. Okay, that makes more sense. Which is probably also why I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah,
because it didn't leave a ripple in the water at all.
Because I remember hearing something about like to see the new like people complaining you have to see the new trailer, you have to play the game or something. I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But
and I'm not doing that either.
It was. I mean, I would consider doing it, except I have to install a 200 gig game to do it, so I'm not going to do that. It's like,
I'm not going to go back and reinstall.
I don't have instant access to Call of Duty to do that. That's the problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it even if I had it installed on my hard drive. I'll just wait and watch the media that's released on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll have that unsifted as soon as it breaks. There are some other details that have leaked out beforehand and then were confirmed by like data mining and things like that. There's going to be an alpha August 27th to the 29th only for PlayStation owners. So the marketing deal that they have had with PlayStation is going to continue for Vanguard. And then there will be 2 beta weekends. The first weekend is again for PlayStation only, and then the second beta weekend will be for everyone. Again, this deal for PlayStation really paying dividends.
Yep.
The game is reportedly launching on November 5th. I'm wondering if that'll be the same day as the GTA Remasters.
Remember.
Yep.
The 5th of November. Oh, that's the wrong country. Never mind.
With Season 1 starting on November 23rd. And then, as I mentioned, Cold War's Final Zombies map is moving to Vanguard. One of the things that has kind of been reported about this is that there are going to be substantial improvements or advancements to Warzone for Call of Duty Vanguard. I don't play Warzone enough to even know what those would be if I played them. to be perfectly honest, I haven't played Warzone since like Cold War came out. Like I played it so I could talk about it on the show. I don't think I've played a single match of it since. I tend to just play like the more traditional playlists instead of jumping into Warzone. But obviously Warzone's the biggest because it's free, and that's what most people are playing. So it makes sense to focus on advancing that part of the game. My big question, Matt, is what are they going to do with a story mode? Because if you remember, the last one had like these, what were they called, war stories or something? It wasn't like a campaign. They had like these separate missions that were like called war stories, I believe. Isn't that right? Wasn't World War II that way?
I thought that was Battlefront.
Was it Battlefront?
Or Battlefield. Was it? I can't remember World War II very well. I really bounced right off that. Did it have? Was it separate things for like Battlefield did?
I thought so.
I can't remember.
I could be wrong.
Maybe they did jump around from one thing to another. I can't remember if it was called that.
We haven't heard anything about a campaign in this yet. Obviously, Cold War had a campaign that was pretty darn good. So it'll be interesting to see if that's carried on. But based upon the developmental issues that have surfaced about Vanguard, I would not be surprised if there is not a campaign, or if there is, it's something like that War Stories option.
Some kind of bite-sized thing.
Yeah, instead of like a full-on campaign.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't remember World War II, but I know Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 did that.
The War Stories. That's what it was called in those games, for sure.
I think so, yeah.
And
that was, at least if you hit a thing that you didn't find interesting, it was over soon. That's like best I can say about that.
And Vincent is saying Activision said it will have all 3 pillars: campaign, co-op, and multiplayer. But what about zombies? I mean, there are actually...
zombies is co-op.
Yeah, I guess zombies falls into the co-op, even though you can play it solo if you want to.
Yeah, but that's not fun.
Yeah. Zombies is not fun by yourself at all.
Like, you might as well just start juggling plates in your kitchen at that point, because you're going to have about as much fun.
Yep. Matt, I know you're not a big shooter player. You're not a shooter player at all at this point. What would it take to get you to play a Call of Duty? Is there anything that they could do? No.
Like, I would
theater of war that would convince you, or
no
setting.
No, I mean, you could make Infinite Warfare 2.
Okay,
I would play that.
Yeah. Okay.
And otherwise I would probably I would not be averse to going back and playing the old original Infinity Ward ones again. I would play 2 and 4 and Modern Warfare 2 again, which I did when they did the the remasters.
Yeah.
I still like those well enough. It's just not this. The new stuff doesn't grab me. Infinite Warfare did because it was something different. It was future stuff. It had some verve to it, I thought. World War II, I don't think I played more than an hour. Like, I just didn't care. Like, I do care about World War II.
World War II was a huge hit, by the way.
Yeah,
it did really.
But
really
I always associate the big hit stuff with multiplayer. When you say that, I assume the multiplayer was really good. That people really liked the multiplayer.
I believe the big thing was boots on the ground again.
Yeah. I just I don't see anything. I don't like Black Ops, so there wasn't a campaign there. But Cold War felt like it was some kind of like continuation or maybe sideways reboot of that kind of thing.
It kind of was. Like, I really liked Cold War at first. I'll say this: at first it was the best I've ever been in Call of Duty, and that coincided with me getting a new wireless router, me getting my new OLED TV.
You had a lot of lag gone all of a sudden.
With no latency.
Yeah.
When I last checked my KD, it was like 1.8. And then the cheaters started rolling in. And I fought through that for like a week. And I was still doing pretty well in the game, but I just got sick of playing against cheaters. And so I stopped, and I have not played it for months, which is very rare. Usually I play one Call of Duty in my spare time, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, until the next one comes out. I haven't played Cold War in months.
And Fragile Zim makes a good point. He asked if I played Titanfall 2. Yes, I have. Titanfall 2 is the best single-player shooter campaign of the last 10 years, maybe more. Yeah. Certainly the last generation.
Could have been a little longer, but...
Could have been, but like part of the problem I have with Call of Duty now is that they're not remotely as good as Titanfall 2. And like... Probably not a coincidence that Titanfall 2 is largely made by the people who made the Call of Duties I would go back and play again.
Yeah.
I really like how those original, what was their name at EA?
20Infinity Ward?
Yeah. Before they formed Infinity Ward, they were 2015 or 20. They had a weird name. Like,
I don't remember.
Like a number for a name, and then they formed Infinity Ward and created Call of Duty because they didn't want to make Medal of Honor anymore. They made Allied Assault, and Allied Assault was great.
It's also great. Yeah.
Call of Duty 1, 2, 4, Modern Warfare 2, great. Titanfall 2, great. You can see that. You can, I can't remember the full name of the guy who did the sniper. It's the same guy. Mackey is his name. He was the level designer on Sniper Town in Allied Assault, that one where you had to go through one shot you all that. And he also did the Chernobyl sniper level.
Which is great.
Which is great. Like, he also worked on Titanfall 2, as I understand. It's just like some of the designers at that team are so good and unique at what they do. You can tell when you're playing one of their levels.
Yeah.
True. There is nothing that unique or that crafted in the modern Call of Duty to me.
They do feel a little like they're copy and paste snapped together.
Infinite Warfare came the closest because it was so different, and it was about a kind of warfare that I have an interest in, speculative, far future sci-fi stuff. Yeah. Like, you're gonna put me in starfighters. You're gonna like turn the gravity off at times. You're gonna make me run through that celebration at the beginning where all of a sudden these cap ships come in.
It was the most innovative Call of Duty.
It showed me stuff I'd never seen in that game before, and frankly,
people rejected it.
Stuff I'd never seen done to that at that budget and that production value level. You know, like that was one of the other things about it.
It was rejected by fans.
Just everyone. I mean, sure.
Like, I love the multiplayer.
I'm no metric for
because
that
it had the jetpacks. Yeah. But if you talk to like Joe Call of Duty fans,
it's not what they wanted.
Hate it.
Yeah,
they hate the jetpacks. They hate everything that they try to do different in it. And look, when it went back to boots on the ground, everybody celebrated again, and now it's just settled into this groove of mediocrity, which seems to be where it's going to stay. We'll see. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll see something with this Vanguard reveal on Thursday that shows that they're trying to push the franchise forward a little bit. I'm not
2015 games. That's what they were.
2015 games.
Yeah, that's what they were when they made Allied Assault.
Catchy.
Yeah, I don't know what the story behind that name is, but that's what they were before they left and formed Infinity Ward.
Regal Vamp says, I like Spec Ops The Line a lot, too. Yeah.
I have never finished that game.
Is a hard word to say.
I have never finished Spec Ops The Line because I find it unplayably boring.
Yeah.
I watched the interesting parts from the end of the game on YouTube and stuff, and okay, fine, I get it. Like, cool, like it's subverts the whole thing and da 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 da. But that game is boring as hell to play.
It's the story and the situations it puts you in that will drive you forward to play.
But I never got to them because I was doing incredibly generic garbage for 2 hours.
It's not a finely crafted game, for sure. That's
also I feel like Nolan North is miscast in that game. I don't buy.
That was the time where he was
he's
casting
in
everything.
I like to imagine before Sam Drake ruined everything. I like to imagine that the main guy in Spec Ops: The Line was Drake's older brother, who just took a very different path in life.
Yeah.
That was also around the time when Saints Row 4 came out, and you had your voice options for the character were male 1, male 2, male 3, female 1, female 2, female 3, and Nolan North.
Yeah.
Nolan North was a literal option.
An option in there. They wanted to get their money's worth, I guess. That's what I mean.
It was a joke. It was literally a joke, but they record. I'm going to go back to Saints Row 4 again. That game's ambition in terms of voice recording is amazing because my friend also started a game and picked a different voice from me, and that her voice has. I'm playing Laura Bailey, who's female 1. She's playing female 2, who is I can't remember her name, the voice actor's name, but she's doing a French accent. She's French. And a bunch of her lines are different.
Really?
Like there's like French interjections and like the subtitles are wrong because she's saying the same sentiment with a different wording.
Huh.
Like they went above and beyond in terms of the voice recording and voice direction on that game in a way the rest of the game doesn't. It's just whoever was in the voice direction and writing on that game went to town in a way that they were not able to with it because it's mostly a reskin of 3.
Yeah.
But like I'm impressed by that game all over again. I miss Volition's stuff.
Yeah.
They do good work.
It's funny because a lot of people who maybe followed me back in the GT days, for whatever reason, they've built this stereotype about me that I am like this huge Call of Duty fan. Mm-hmm. So I can always tell people who haven't followed me since I left Game Trailers because they'll like jump into like the comments on YouTube on one of our episodes and be like, Shane's a COD mark or whatever. I'm like, man, you have not listened to my discussions about Call of Duty for a long time if you believe that is the case. I personally am struggling to get excited for Vanguard at all because I feel like, as I said earlier, the franchise has just settled into this place where it's afraid to change, and because they're afraid of being rejected by fans.
Yeah. Well, also like it's like the only thing Activision puts out. Like they can't afford to have a failure.
Yeah.
Like you can't experiment in the position they're in.
I'm wondering too if all the hubbub about Activision Blizzard and all the stuff that's been going on there might have some kind of an impact on how the game does. I'm just struggling to generate a lot of excitement for the big reveal on Thursday. I mean, I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope it ends up being something that's amazing. I'm just not 100% sure that that's going to be the case.
Sometimes I look back at the last time I cared about Call of Duty, and it's amazing how far time stretches into the past.
And it'll be even more amazing if you counted how many units it sold in that amount of time. Because, I mean, Activision, it's the sad part, Matt, is that we always say vote with your money. Well, people did. And so they created an innovative Call of Duty, and it was rejected. So it sucks when you tell people to vote with their money and they vote for the wrong candidate. It's like,
I mean,
but look, it's not my franchise; it's everyone's franchise.
That's what de Tocqueville called the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah, it's tough,
and especially when people like a bunch of different options. In the end, the thing that wins is generally going to be something most people aren't happy with.
Yeah,
just because something gets a majority of the votes, if you add up all the minority votes, you might end up with a majority who's unhappy with the outcome.
No, it's like if you look
and sometimes I wonder if that's the case with Call of Duty, but just everybody's got that's what they play, so it's just what they keep doing, you know?
Well, it's like I went and looked at the comments on YouTube for this debut teaser trailer for Vanguard, and almost all of them We're like, another year, another COD.
Yep.
But that's your fault.
But everybody plays it. Yeah, you still do it.
It's like that's your fault.
Yeah, and of course, the majority of the people that do make that happen are people who would never even look at it on YouTube.
Right.
You know, they're all just the people that new Call of Duty's
New Call
out.
of Duty.
Time
to head to GameStop and pick it up. My
Walmart.
first week of November.
They get it at Walmart.
Yeah,
let's be
right.
honest.
My the first week of November ritual that all these people go through. They just go and pick it up sight unseen.
And then the other game that does that, of course, there's two I associate with that sort of cycle.
What, Grand Theft Auto?
No, that doesn't come out often enough to have a cycle.
But I'm just saying that they always pick it up. Every time they get a new console, they buy
I'm talking about the other yearly release. We'll get to it in a minute.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
The one I don't play.
Yeah, I'm going to be handling this next topic all on my lonesome, unfortunately.
I didn't even know it came out. I know this is when it comes out. It's not out, but I forget.
Yeah.
I forget it's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing, and we'll get to that next. But that's all the information we have on Call of Duty Vanguard. As I said, Thursday, let me get you that time again, just to pound it into your head, so if you're interested, you know. Thursday, August 19th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. That's when you can go inside of Call of Duty Warzone and experience the full debut of Vanguard Live. Or you could just be like me and wait until like 11:30 or noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, and just see everyone you know tweet about it and just see it that way.
Or go to sifted.net and just watch the stuff without having to jump through all the hoops of actually playing in Warzone and dealing with that whole...
Mine usually tends to be like, everyone's tweeting about, was that a video? All right, I guess I'll watch that now. That's how I encounter marketing now, is just like Patrick Klepek retweets it and I see it.
That's how you see it.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that's Call of Duty Vanguard, what we know so far. We'll probably circle back to it next week once we have some more details. Also, these alphas and betas are coming before the end of the month. 27th to the 29th is the first alpha on PlayStation. So we'll be playing this in the not-too-distant future, which hopefully is exciting. We'll see. Next up, as Matt was alluding to, a game he has very little interest in. and truth be told, it's the same for most of you. And so it's always weird. Every year I talk about Madden, and I'll say, I'm not going to talk about this very long because I know a lot of you guys aren't interested in it. And then we'll publish the episode, and people will be pissed that I cut the conversation short because they're like, I do care about it. So I'm going to try to go in between this time. We're not going to talk about it for like 20 minutes like we do most games. I'm not going to talk about it for like 5 to 8 like I have in years prior.
Like my thing on this is, especially after, we don't do it anymore, but like for a long time I used to do like football Sundays at my friend Lawrence's house, and I had the games on during Sunday, and like we would talk about movies and nerd stuff and Star Wars and things like that. And barbecue and doing there's other things. It was a social event. Football was the excuse kind of thing. And some people really did care, and others of us were just sort of there to see each other. But over the course of that, by osmosis, I did just start to understand how football works better.
Yeah.
And there were a couple times when I also got to understand. I think I got a glimpse into the sports thing for a second, where during the mainly
just for a fleeting moment,
just like during like the playoff stuff, because I enjoyed going there and like we had stuff planned and food planned, everything. Like every once in a while, I get there at like 9:30 in the morning on Sunday. It was exciting that like
games start at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
here, people.
But it was exciting. It's like, oh, we got a whole day of this to do. Like we got a whole day to see this. All these games are gonna be on, and we're gonna like do all these meals we got planned, and we're gonna talk all day. It's like it was exciting to as a thing, as an event that was gonna be there, and it was all gonna be on the TV, and it was all like I got it for a second. Like I still didn't care who won, but I got like the draw.
Yeah.
And there were a couple times
the community part of it.
Yeah. And there were a couple times when I got like, oh, I should try Madden. Now that I kind of understand some of how football works, I should try Madden again. And so I'd like go and like pick up, like a beta or demo would be up, or I'd get a cheap copy of the previous years, and I'd try like, nope.
Yeah.
Like still no. Like not it.
Well, it's funny. My mom is a gigantic Steelers fan, just like me. I mean, my whole family Steelers, and it's just a thing that's just kind of passed down from generation to generation. Like when my nieces and nephews are born, one of the first things I get them is like a Steelers onesie, and that sets it in motion. And then there's baby pictures of them wearing Steelers gear, and they just turn into Steelers fans. And my mom has been watching football longer than I have. Like she was into it before I was born, and now I'm into it more now than she is. You wouldn't know that talking to her, of course, but she's been watching football for decades, and there are still obvious things about the game that she does not get. Like, I'll be watching a game with her, and she'll say something, and I'll be like, really? like, she still doesn't understand, like, a lot of the logic or the strategy behind it. Like, she'll be like, why don't they just kick the field goal immediately and just get the 3 points? And I'm like, because they can score 7.
Yeah.
And she's like, but they're not going to miss the field goal, Shane. They're going to get the 3 points if they kick the field goal. I'm like, but Mom,
That's why they wait until the last down to do that, because they have a chance.
Right, like stuff like that she still doesn't get. In football, my point is that football is really complicated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it really is.
I get extra confused sometimes because my dad didn't like the NFL. He liked college.
Right.
So, like, I most of the kind of being around football when I was younger, growing up, was from college, and so NFL's a little different, and I don't understand the nuance in places. And I think it's indicative that periodically I would ask my dad, "Why do you like college football and not NFL football?" Yeah. And he never gave me an answer I really understood. Like, I can't tell.
I wouldn't understand it
even
either.
now, I can't tell you what his answers were, because it was just sort of like, what? Like,
I never understand.
There was something
people.
about, like, the game was faster, or there was more rules.
There's more scoring because there's a lot. There's worse players on the field.
He didn't phrase it like that, but I remember him saying they were higher scoring games.
Yeah, because there's not enough good players to go around. Like, once you get to the NFL, those thousands of players are called down to like 200. So you're getting the best of the best on the field at all times. In college, you have people like me, honestly. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I was a pretty good player in high school. If I really wanted to play college football, I probably could have walked on and sat on the bench and played like special teams or whatever. Like, people like me can make the team. You get to the pros, it's not. So you have a lot more scoring, a lot more big plays in college football, because there's crappy defenders out there who are going to blow coverages or just aren't fast enough to keep up with, like, Alabama's 4-star recruits. You have a much bigger disparity in skill. And so for some people who just want to have exciting moments watching sports, they like college better, or they're really tied to, like, their alma mater. I'm a Temple alum. Temple's football team has historically been terrible. They've been competitive the last, like, 10 years, but they're in this little dinky conference, and even if they went undefeated, they still wouldn't play for the national championship. So I struggle to get into college football. I really don't watch it at all. I'll watch, the national championship. I can see that. Like,
I certainly knew people in college who, like, they loved pro football, and they're one of the things a lot of them would say independent, and a lot of them were from De La Salle, which is like
the high school,
the football school, and they would say like, football's a war. Like it's watching a war of two sides, like, fighting for territory.
It is, yeah.
And I can see that if that's your mentality, what you enjoy about the game, why the NFL version would be more interesting than watching a bunch of kids screw up. Like if that's kind of what happens in college football, I can see why that would be less appealing, because then you're like, no, like, especially the way people get all was like, no, how could the armchair quarterback stuff? Like, it must be more frustrating to watch college players.
It's hard because. So football, a lot of it is tension. It's coming down to this play. Can the defense stop them? In college, you watch college football, and again, I'm a Temple fan because I went to school at Temple. Like, you watch a play like that, and you're like, it all comes down to this. And, like, their safety just falls down. Or somebody just blasts past him because they have twice the speed. Right. And you're just like, we have a scrubby safety, and it cost us the whole game. Like, the NFL doesn't generally work that way.
But you do get a taste of it being a Browns fan, it sounds like. Even I know that.
You do. I like that, Matt. That's the Steelers' like arch rival, by the way. So I
like. Was it Time Zinni says? Or is it Time Zinni says? I'm just a fan of seeing the same Toyota commercial 20 times in 30 minutes. That is also true.
That's a good point. Noxid Turnitis says, to like football, you have to be into the strategy for the 4 or 5 seconds of action at a time. That's true.
It's like
it's a lot of downtime.
It reminds me of turn-based strategy games sometimes.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
So much work into one moment, and if that one moment goes wrong, you got to start over.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So anyway, let's talk about Madden instead of just football.
Yeah.
I have been playing Madden the new Madden for the last 5 days, something like that.
You've gotten 2 games done.
Yeah. They do take a long time, man. It's a big time commitment. And, as Matt was alluding to earlier, people always say, new year, same Madden. And that's always what people want to know first is it New Year, same Madden? And I would say this. I'm a big football fan, and I do enjoy Madden, but I would agree with that assessment of Madden more than most Madden players. It is, for the most part, every year, only the hardest of the hardcore fans really notice the changes.
I mean, the important thing is how much shinier are the helmets?
I'll say this. The helmets look amazing this year.
All right.
Amazing. They literally look real. They've nailed the lighting and how the lighting works, even with like the metal flake helmets. This game looks stunning.
It does look good.
It is amazing, honestly. There are times where my eye is tricked into believing.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, I know those are just photos there, but like the presentation sometimes is very, very tricky.
Yeah. Now, look, if you saw that glimpse of Patrick Mahomes earlier in the B-roll there, he doesn't look anything like Patrick Mahomes. But then there are other players, like the coaches, are scarily accurate. I mean, it really looks like the coaches. Some of the players, not so much. You would think the cover boy, like Andy Reid.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, wow, look at that shot. That shirt's really well done, too.
Dude, there are moments where this game will fool you.
I used to say years ago, I think I said it on like years ago on this show, it's like the next big challenge for sports games is cloth.
Yeah.
Like making the uniforms crease and hang
on
on
people. And they've started that
correctly.
in NBA 2K.
Yeah, NBA really pioneered that with like
and
making
it was really
shirts
weird
hang
at
off
first.
People. But they're getting there.
They're getting there. It's getting better. So visually, and by the way, this was captured on Xbox Series X. If you're wondering which platform this footage was captured on, it looks stunning for sure. But what people are really concerned about the most now is like, how are they going to tweak the modes? What are they going to do to the actual gameplay itself? And I will say this: as far as Madden games go, this one is pretty high up on the scale as far as improvements and changes. The biggest change is to the mode that most people play, and for whatever, well, I know why. They haven't worked on it very much. It's because they want Ultimate Team to drive tons of revenue. But franchise mode is the mode that most players play, and most people care about the most. They had not touched franchise mode, I'm not exaggerating, Matt, since the generation before last. Because when Ultimate Team became this money thing for EA...
Like PS3?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the money thing with Ultimate Team, once that took over, all the improvements year after year were to Ultimate Team. This year, Ultimate Team basically went untouched, which is crazy and hard to believe because it is still the moneymaker for EA for the most part. But this year, all the changes were made to franchise, but they still aren't all that deep. So you can still play franchise as either the owner, the coach, or the player. One of the big changes is that you have a lot more control over the coaches and the coaching, all the way down to like the personnel people who you never even hear about, even if you're a hardcore football fan. The coaches now have skill trees. So as you play through the game and you earn points, you can now apply those to the coaches. So, like the Steelers just drafted a running back in the first round named Najee Harris. Their offensive line is terrible. They just completely revamped it. So they have this new running back who's amazing, but their O-line sucks. So from my perspective, what I ended up doing was I took a lot of those points and I spent them on the offensive line coach, and then I specifically chose to have him teach the lineman how to pull block. Do you know what that is?
No.
So that's instead of just like blocking the person in front of you, you actually ignore that person and run around the end and start running in front of the running back and block whoever you can. And since Najee is fast, he's an outside runner, I decided to put my points into my coach, teaching my line how to do that. Now, I haven't got far enough to where I'm like seeing a difference in it, but it's a big difference, and it adds definitely some granularity to how you can upgrade your team. It's not just about your player now, it's also about the people who are actually helping to improve your players, which is a neat addition, but again, something that only really the hardcore players are going to notice. Training has been simplified, which is good, because training has always been boring as crap, and most people skipped it. I think EA figured that out, and so it's a lot more simple now. And then here's the caveat. Those are the additions to franchise that are in the game now. EA has promised a bunch of them to come as updates and DLC later, which I'm not 100% convinced that that's going to be the case or that that's actually going to happen. But the good news is they have finally upgraded franchise mode. It still has all the other cool stuff. You can do online leagues with literally the whole league filled out with real human players. And there's already thousands and thousands of leagues that have been created. Because this is on Game Pass, by the way. You can play this on Game Pass right now. It's not even out yet, and you can play it. I think it's on a 10-hour timer, but I think EA may have just eliminated that because people were having problems with it. So if you have Game Pass, you can go play this right now if you want to. And then to go down through some of the other modes, the story mode returns, called Face of the Franchise. It's still absurdly stupid. The big change to that is that now you can be a linebacker, whereas before you could only be kind of like offensive positions. I'm always the quarterback in that mode. I don't know why, because the quarterback touches the ball every play. Mm-hmm. And in these modes, like, you only play from your perspective, and so I don't want to play running back or wide receiver and just run a route and have no one throw me the ball. So I always play quarterback in this. At least at linebacker, you're actually in on every defensive play, so maybe there is an appeal for that. But the story is just awful. It's the typical, you're fresh out of college, you get drafted, and then you're on the team, and then you want to become the starter. And this
There's
one
only
is,
so much you can really do, I guess.
You're right. I mean, and the other characters in the plot, one is your agent. The other one is basically your hype man, who's your quote-unquote brand manager, who follows you around with a cell phone and takes TikTok videos of you and puts them up on social media. I don't even know why they bother doing it anymore. It's offensively bad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's certainly fallen a long way from like the ambition of that one, the first one they did with Mahershala Ali.
It never went any further. No. And in fact, it regressed from that. Since they really put real effort into it that first time, and since then, I think they figured out that people were just like, this is dumb, and so they're like, well, then why are we spending a ton of time on it?
I mean, I felt like that was sort of an attempt to get people like me in on it, like who wanted the drama, because I'll watch a sports movie.
Yeah.
Like the drama of the conflict of sports is not lost on me. I just don't want to watch it in real time.
Right. Yep. And it's bad. The story is really bad. And there are moments, it is like an RPG, so it's like you play out your week, and then you have a meeting with your coach. He tells you, okay, well, you need to work on this and that. You make decisions in those conversations. Some of those decisions immediately boost, like, your player's abilities. Like, he'd be like, I need you to focus on blocking or whatever. And you block. Before you even block, you get, like, a stat bonus just from the conversation. He's like, well, you said you're going to try to block harder. Here's like a higher blocker rating. I don't know. It literally kept my attention for about an hour and a half. And I was like, I'm good. I see where all this is headed, and I've done it a million times. There just weren't enough changes or additions to it to make it interesting. And the story was dumb. The voice acting was bad. The cinematography was bad. It was just
in fast motion. It looks like you're doing horrible experiments on this man.
Oh yeah.
He's like, no, let me go. What are you doing?
Yeah. And let's go through all the other modes, because that's the other thing about this game. There are a ton of modes, but Matt, the best way I could describe it, it feels like they designed this game using those like poetry magnets. Yeah. That you get for your refrigerator, where they just give you a bunch of words and then you piece the words together to make this abstract, weird poetry. Like, I feel like they just were like, okay, this is all the stuff that we've got. Let's put it into like some AI algorithm and have it spit out the modes for us. The yard is like this 6 versus 6, basically the closest thing you're going to get to NFL Street. Remember that franchise that existed for a couple years? But it has like
all the streets.
Yeah, NBA Street.
NBA Street. There was a.
They never did NHL Street because that didn't make any sense.
There was a soccer one, right?
Yeah, there was one, I believe. FIFA Street. Yeah, there was.
Street, yeah.
Yep. But there are certain conditions in the yard, like you draft players.
I'd like to see them try NHL Street. That would be
it would be street hockey, basically, with a ball.
Just be like, oh, the street's iced up. Let's just go play, let's go play hockey. Oh, no, car.
Yeah. But the yard is the closest thing to NFL Street. It's 6v6. You kind of draft players when you start. Like they'll give you a selection of like 6 players, and you choose one until you've picked 6 players. Mm-hmm. It's generally 3 from offense, 3 from defense. And then there's like special conditions inside the games, like if you play in Florida where it's really hot, the stamina drains quicker on your players. There was like a boss fight. At least they have it labeled as a boss fight with George Kittle, who's a tight end of the 49ers, and he's really good. But if you look in the menus, it says like George Kittle boss fight, and then it's just you play against a team that has George Kittle on their roster. It's not like there's this like gigantic George, which would have been awesome if they created like this 10-foot tall version of George Kittle, and you had like 3 people trying to tackle like this gigantic George Kittle. Like to your point earlier where you're like, there really aren't a lot of options. There are options. Like if you really want to spend the time.
If you wanted to make like the JRPG of the NFL,
you could do it.
You could do that.
But you have to dedicate the resources to it. Instead, what Tiburon does with Madden is they're like, okay, this is what we've already got. How can we shuffle this up to make it seem unique? So like the yard, like you have these really obnoxious uniforms, and a big part of it is unlocking new uniform stuff. It's kind of like trying to bring like Fortnite or free-to-play cosmetic-driven games into Madden is basically what it is. It's goofy. It's stupid. Some of the players are like giants. And then like there was one time I had a player that was probably was like 7.5 feet tall, trying to be covered by like a player who was like 5 feet tall. Like, so there are kind of some of these weird moments in the yard, but again, not enough to sustain it. And at the end of the day, you're still just playing football. That's really the problem, is all these modes. At the end of the day, you're still just playing football. With like they do switch up like the things a little bit, like sometimes the first downs it's like 25 yards. Yeah, this is what this. So
that is rough.
Yep. So this is the
especially with the rest of the game looking how it looks.
This is the face of the franchise.
Oh
this
my
is
God.
Exactly. I mean, I wasn't exaggerating when I said it was god awful. It is awful, dude.
It looks like some Unity shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the football looks so good and the cinematics, like for the story mode, looks so terrible. Like, why?
One thing got a lot of time and effort. The other was done like a shoestring budget.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it really comes down to. But it's bad and not worth playing. And then there's Ultimate Team, as I talked about. Didn't receive really many updates this year. One thing that I did notice that's a little different is...
Like, if you told me this was done in, like, 2012, I might believe you.
Yeah. This is also, keep in mind, this is running on Xbox Series X. Yeah. So it's not like I'm playing the PS4 version or anything. Like, this is as good as it looks. And it does not look very good at all. Ultimate Team did not get a ton of tweaks. One thing I did notice, though, is like it used to be when you started Ultimate Team, you'd get handed like 20 packs of cards, and you'd have to like sit there and like watch them all unlock and then put your team together. Basically, what it did was it took my favorite team this time, which is the Steelers, and it threw all of the new Steelers draft picks onto my team, and then just filled it out with a bunch of nobodies. And then you start earning packs. So you use that team to start playing through like the first few missions of it. And then you earn packs, and then you start adding like really good NFL players to your team. But it's fine. Like I didn't like that whole like spend.
that was your upgrade there,
right? Yeah, there it was.
Decided to be better at throwing it with accuracy, and
then suddenly I get 20 plus 25.
You did something between.
Exactly. I was kind of foreshadowing a lot of the B-roll, unfortunately, and now you're seeing a lot of the stuff that I was talking about. But Ultimate Team, it takes too long to get going. You have to play like these like the first mission in Ultimate Team is call a play. It's like, really? You think people playing this don't know how to call a play in Madden at this point? And then the simple missions go way too long. Eventually you get to like where you can start adding big players, and like you can even do that like at a certain point they're like, okay, you're in early access. You can unlock either Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. And I was like, well, crap. I definitely want Patrick Mahomes on my Ultimate Team. So I went into the menus, and you have like until the day it releases basically to go through this. 12 missions to unlock Patrick Mahomes. And I was like, okay, how much does it cost? Which is their whole...
Satterfield will not put this stupid outfit on.
You're exactly. Exactly. Yep. So this is the yard, I believe.
Yeah, that's judging by what you said about the uniforms, I'm guessing that's what this is.
Yeah, so this is B-roll of the yard, which again, it's just all about like the costuming and like...
What in the world?
I know. It's so bizarre. I don't know. People
This isn't a real thing, right?
No. This is all fabricated by EA. Again, I just think it's like them trying to appeal to some audience that I don't think exists.
Maybe the story mode should take place in this world?
It would be more interesting. It would be. Absolutely. That's actually not a bad suggestion, Matt. Oh, yeah. So I was talking about like how they handle like the packs and monetization. If you want to unlock stuff for free in Ultimate Team, it's work. Bottom line.
Yeah.
If you want to pay for it,
just enough work to make you think about buying it.
Yeah. They've really got it honed to that perfect algorithm of, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of times I was like, you know what, if I really wanted this, I would just pay for it. Yeah. Because the points that you earn in game and what they're asking for a pack of cards based upon in-earned points is outrageous. So I can see why it's their big money maker, because the way that they've set the prices for all that stuff, I'd rather pay $1, Matt, than play through this slog of like dumb missions trying to unlock stuff.
Life is finite.
Yeah. I mean, time is money. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. I mean, as you get older, you start to look at things that way a lot more. And I am at that point where my time is definitely money. There's another mode called Superstar KO. It's also a mode where you draft players. You draft 3 defensive players and 3 offensive players. It also has weird rules like 25-yard first downs. And then there's another mode called Champion Series, which is another 6 versus 6 mode with backyard rules. Yeah. There are a couple tweaks to the actual gameplay that are worthy and noticeable. They've completely changed the momentum system and the physics in the game, and I noticed that almost immediately. The first time I had a collision with someone, I noticed it. I was like, okay, my running back's bigger. He should knock this guy on his ass. And sure enough, he plowed right over him and knocked him on his ass. There's no more of these weird, like, player almost glitches and touches your player, and then your player goes, like, spinning out of control and falling down.
I've noticed that the collisions are way cleaner, even
cleaner.
just looking at the B-roll.
And way more realistic. There's not this weird, like, he barely touched me, and my player
or like the things where, like, you sort of they make contact and you sort of see the character model sort of snap into the animation they need to be in.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you need to do the rolling number 4 animation, and you just snap into it. It's a lot more realistic for sure. And it really pays dividends in the running game. The running game in this is great, so much so that I had played it for a good while, and I was getting my first deck of cards for Ultimate Team where I had to pick, okay, here's 6 players, pick the one that you want. And there was one really good running back in that pack, Dalvin Cook. And because I had already played the game enough to see that I really enjoyed running with the football, I picked Dalvin Cook as my first player. Like, the running game is so good that it convinced me to spend my first overall pick in my Ultimate Team on a running back instead of a quarterback or a wide receiver. It just feels good. Like, it's patience is key in running the ball in this game. Like, if you center the ball and you hand it to the running back and you just run straight into the line, you're going to get a yard. If you get handed the ball and you sit and you wait for the blocking to set up and you start watching your guys who are pulling from the left come around the right and find the linebacker and seal it off. Like, there was one time where I scored a touchdown where I got handed the ball and I was just kind of like just skipping along for a couple yards, and then I watch my blockers come and engage, and then boom, I just hit the turbo and just shot straight through the hole. It just feels real. Like, that's how real football works. If you've ever played football, the game feels great to play is what I'm getting at. Like, I love running the ball in this, which is the bulk of what you do when you're playing Madden. The stadiums have been completely redone, and they are so accurate now. And I don't know if this is going to be the case with, like, the PS4 or the Xbox One, but on Xbox Series X, the stadiums outside are so accurate that they now do shots outside the stadium, and they've built, like, the areas of the town around the stadium, which is something that they've never done. If they ever did that before, it would be like this straight down, like, blimp view of the stadium, or another high view where they don't show much of anything around the stadium, but they've modeled all that stuff now. Another change is called dynamic gameplay, and this is weird. This is, as announced by EA, only in the next gen versions. And basically what that means is, like, depending on the game situation and where you are, if fans start chanting, like the Vikings have, like, their skull chant. So I was playing against the Vikings. I was trying to kick a field goal. They started doing the skull chant, and, like, my kicking meter started going crazy. Like, the target started going left and right. And when I finally decided to kick, the meter went up really quickly. Players,
so it was actually a disadvantage for you
because I was the visitor. I was a visiting player. Yeah, and so it was harder to kick the field goal with the chant going. And I noticed in other situations, like, my players, if I was playing at home and like if they did the "Here We Go Steelers" song, which they do 20 times a game at Steelers games, when that started happening, I noticed that my running back Najee Harris he got, like, this weird, like, glow around, like, on the ground underneath him, and he just took off like a jet. So there's, like, these weird things where the fans and the fan interaction actually affects how the players play on the field. But again, that's next gen only. I don't know why that is, but that's straight from EA, that it's only in the PS5 and Xbox Series versions. Another thing. So because of the way that they changed the physics in tackling and running and momentum, it has changed how people play online. So it used to be, people chose the teams that they were going to play based upon typically the quarterback, if the quarterback could run or not, and whether the team had a fast inside linebacker. And then they would just play as that inside linebacker all game long. That's changed because of the momentum now. Those fast inside linebackers, they're fast, but they're also not as big and not as strong and as heavy. In reality, when those guys come up to stop the run, they get blown off the ball. And so they're a liability in rundowns. In Madden, it was never that way. These skinny little linebackers who could run really fast could come up and tackle just as well as the bigger linebackers. That is not the case anymore. So you're not going to see like everybody playing with the same teams anymore because this one team has this linebacker that's rated at like an 85 speed or whatever. And so hopefully that will change things a little bit so that when you're playing online, and I noticed it already, like the people I've been playing against have been playing defensive line, they've been playing cornerback, they've been playing safety, instead of just being that middle linebacker like everyone has been for the last several years in Madden. And then the final thing I would say about the gameplay, one thing that I don't like about it is that there's a stamina meter in the game, Matt. And you know how much I love that. And look, it does make sense in football, and it has been in football games for a long time. But the stamina meter in this game needs to be tweaked, like, big time. Like, I rushed, like, 3 times at TJ Watt, and he was exhausted. Like, it's just shit. The players get tired way too quickly, and they take way too long to be ready to return to the game. So I blitzed with him, like, 3 times. He was out. He left the game. He didn't come back in until the series was over. So they need to do some tweaking on that. They're making the players get tired way too quickly. But otherwise, you know, I'm having a really good time with it. If you haven't bought Madden for a while, I think this is a worthy one to purchase. I will say this too, the transition from one generation to the next has been way more seamless this time compared to prior years, where that first year it would just be this totally like chopped down version. And they jumped that hurdle last year, and now they're to the point where just in the second year on these new consoles, it's already pushing the boundaries of what any Madden game has ever had before. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Again, if you are a Game Pass subscriber, you can get this right now because EA Play is all a part of Game Pass now. And so you're getting like EA's games day and date too, which is pretty freaking awesome. And you can play it now, and everything's available. All the online stuff is there. It's all hooked up. It's all working. I played 5 or 10 online games already. All the modes are there. Now, there are some of the tweaks that I mentioned earlier that are coming to franchise that are going to be DLC later. I do not trust that that's actually going to happen. So I wouldn't hang my hat on the idea that all these other advancements to franchise mode are going to make it. But the ones that are there already are pretty significant if you've been playing franchise for a long time. I still think people who are salty over franchise being neglected for the last, 6 years are probably still going to be salty because there aren't that many drastic changes to it. But at least they're trying to do something with it. And stuff that's meaningful and not just cosmetic. So there you go. That's Madden NFL 22. It's available for pretty much everything but Switch at this point. I don't know if we'll ever see another Madden on Switch. Probably not. Did we ever get a Madden on Switch at all?
I don't know.
I don't even know if that first year.
Of the two of us, you're the only one who would know that.
Who would know that? Yeah, I don't believe so. Someone in chat will probably fill me in. But that's Madden 22. It's not out yet. It's going to be out, I think it's the 19th, so or maybe Friday. It's coming out soon. But again, if you have Game Pass, you don't have to pay for it. You can just play it for free. At the very least, maybe get yourself a test run of Game Pass for free to play Madden for a few days if you want to figure out if you want to buy it or not. That's the beauty of Game Pass. You can find deals anywhere where you can get it for 3 months for $1 or whatever. And truth be told, if you did get a 3-month trial of Game Pass, that's probably all you're going to play Madden anyway. By that time, it gets you to the end of the NFL season, and all the big games will be coming out for Q4 at that point. So it'll be interesting to see how all this stuff works. If EA is going to be happy with whatever it's getting paid by Microsoft for so many people to not buy Madden this year because they're getting it for free on Game Pass. Because Madden has actually kind of had a sales resurgence over the last couple years. There was that period during last gen where it was not selling well at all.
No.
It was selling 3 million or whatever. It has gone to this place now where it's starting to push up towards the 8, 9, 10 million in sales every year. So it'll be interesting to see how EA ultimately looks at that and is does this deal make sense for us if, we lose all the Xbox sales? Because they're basically going to lose all sales on Xbox on Madden for this year.
Yep.
How do you think that EA is going to react to that?
I mean, I would have to assume that Microsoft is paying them more than they would
A
have
lot
made.
of money, you would think. I don't know. We'll see. But who cares? Enjoy it while it lasts. And you can get Madden for free this year if you're an Xbox owner and you have Game Pass.
Yeah. I mean, is that the whole... Really? It's not just a 10-hour trial? Like, the game is going to be Game Pass?
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
All right.
Yep. So we'll see how EA deals with that. It's maybe a one-and-done type thing. Just if you think about it, too, playing it for the trial, that's still a huge deal.
I mean, yeah, it's more than enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, most people will probably play that trial and be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I have been enjoying playing it, though, and I will continue to play it when it's all said and done, when the final release is here, at least for the first month of the NFL season until the shine wears off. Until one of my fantasy teams goes into the toilet and I hate football after the first month or whatever. But anyway, there you go. That's Madden NFL 22. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about indie games. Over the last week, there were 2 huge indie game events, one by Nintendo and one by Microsoft. And truth be told, there were probably a grand total of 30 games between the 2 events. It was an indie smorgasbord for both of those platforms, for both Switch and Xbox consoles. Obviously, Microsoft has the ID at Xbox. Nintendo has its Nindies imprint that it uses to promote all its indie games. I went through all of these games that were shown at both of these events, and I found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I thought were worth talking about. It was kind of like
5 licks to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop.
Exactly. It was kind of like recently when Microsoft was like, oh, we've got 30 ID at Xbox games queued up and ready to go. And I went and looked at the list, and there was one that actually seemed interesting. It was kind of the same deal with this, but I will say this. There were a few games that I thought were really cool. The first one we're going to talk about is a game called Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which I think is maybe the best name for a video game ever. It is a lot like Jet Set Radio, except instead of inline skating, it's skateboarding, but it still has the cel-shaded graphics. It still has the graffiti element to it that you got in Jet Set. Oh, and there's inline skating too, apparently. So it really is just Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, it really looks like. If you called that Jet Set Radio 3, I would believe you.
I would believe you, yeah. I mean, it looks good enough, too, that I'd be like, yep, that's Sega's game.
Yeah, as long as it has comparable music.
Right, which...
Probably not.
Well, the song, I'll say this, the song in this trailer wasn't bad, but I also don't think it was licensed. I think it was just the developers made it or whatever.
I mean, most of the songs in Jet Set are not licensed. They were made by Wavemaster.
Yeah.
They're in the Sega's in-house music team.
Yep.
Very hard to replicate that.
Yep, but if you have missed Jet Set Radio across the years, and I don't think Sega will ever make another one, do you, Matt?
I don't think so. I would love to see them finally bring Future to backwards compatibility, but no, I don't. I mean, you can get Jet Set Radio on Xbox now. That's backwards. The digital version from the 360 is backwards compatible. But no, I don't expect to ever see a new one. Sadly.
I don't either. And so if you miss that stuff and you're looking for a facsimile or the closest facsimile, I can't think of another one that more closely resembles
definitely looks about as close as we're going to get.
Yep. And then the next game I wanted to talk about is called Far Changing Tides. This is actually the sequel to, let me see if I can remember the subtitle. I lost it.
That's a weird subtitle.
No, Far is the name of the game. And then the subtitle is different for the one that was before this. This is a sequel to it. It's kind of just like an exploration game. Lone Sails. That was the name of the first game. Far Lone Sails. And this is Far Changing Tides. It's developed by Okamotive and published by Frontier. It's basically just a sailing journey through an apocalyptic world, which is kind of the same premise that the last game was. But this was one of the games in both of the presentations that looked like it had a lot of resources put towards it, and looked like it had a decent budget, and looks interesting. The other one is atmospheric adventure games, where probably somebody dies that tries to make you cry, as Matt likes to allude to.
I mean, I think a lot of people have died, judging by this world.
Yeah.
So I like the underwater stuff. It looks suitably creepy.
Yep.
Skeletons of ancient ships.
Yep. And those were 2 games that were in the Nintendo Nindies presentation. The last 3 games come from the ID at Xbox. And I'll be honest, the far more interesting games as well. First one we're going to talk about is Lightyear Frontier. It's an open world farming exploration game with crafting, resource management, and base building. You can play with up to 4 players in online co-op. You can discover and grow alien plants, domesticate alien wildlife, endure the elements to build your new home away from home. It is basically just a life farm management sim set in space for the most part.
With mechs.
What'd you say?
With mechs.
With mechs, yeah.
Which is really what Stardew Valley is missing.
Mechs.
Mechs.
But this game looked interesting to me. Again, out of dozens and dozens that were shown across the 2 events. The next one, though,
Harvest
I think...
mech.
Yeah. The next one, though, I think is the most interesting of them all. It is called The Wandering Village. This is a... I don't even know how to explain it, really. It is like a settlement game and a world-building game, but it takes place on the back of a gigantic creature that is always moving. So it's a survival game set on the back of this gigantic creature in a world where mysterious toxic spores are contaminating the planet. A group of people seeks a shelter on the back of a giant wandering creature.
It's like Shadow of the Colossus, but like the
you
opposite.
live there. Yeah. It's your house. Yeah. You become their leader, you build their settlement, and form a symbiotic relationship with the creature to survive together, which is kind of cool. So I don't know if like the settlements that you're building on the creature will also become kind of defenses for the creature.
Yeah, probably. Or it'll affect how the creature behaves somehow.
Right. Yeah. So, your success is dependent not just upon your settlement, but how the settlement impacts the massive creature that you're building the settlement on.
It has sort of an ActRaiser look to it that I like.
It's a very creative idea. And again, it'll be another one of those things where the creature dies or the could die, and this tension will hang over your head like the entire time. Because if the creature dies, you die. It's a very unique and interesting concept. And again, to me, and there you see the dead one from before. A little bit of foreshadowing there. But to me, the most creative looking game of all the ones that were shown across both Nintendo and Microsoft's event. And then the final game I want to show is called Aeon Drive, not to be confused with Ion Flux. Excuse me. This game takes place in Neo Barcelona. It's an action platformer with speedrunning kind of built into the game itself. You can play it by yourself or up to 4 friends. You sprint and dash through the areas of the game. Use your time and space-bending abilities to get ahead. It's coming to Xbox Series and Xbox One this fall. No word on a PC version yet. I'm surprised there aren't more games that are custom-built for speedrunners, particularly indie games where you have like a low ceiling as far as like risk and investment.
You're starting to see it more, but it's not standard.
It hasn't become
it's not standard equipment yet.
Yeah, it hasn't become like a thing yet. Like games like this are still notable for it, whereas I think in a few years that may not actually be the case. But yeah, these were kind of the big indie games that I pulled out of those presentations. What does this tell you about kind of the current crop of indie development, Matt, if anything?
It's hard to stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
What about they're starting to run out of unique ideas?
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe that's the same thing as it's hard to stand out.
Somewhat. I mean, I don't know. We've been over that. I don't think unique ideas are as important as quality execution.
Yeah, that's true. You said that many times.
I don't know what I think about this one. This one looks like it would just annoy me.
Yeah.
It looks good, but maybe not my thing. Definitely, I would say the Wandering Village was the most interesting of the 5.
Yeah, It's a really cool game, but it's also a little disappointing that out of like 30-some games, that was kind of the most creative one.
Yeah. I don't know. Vincent's saying what you take from it is that we don't like indies, which is completely false
yeah,
about
that's
me.
Completely false.
You can't play them all, and a lot of the stuff they show off on these things in terms of indies are not interesting to me.
Yeah.
But a lot of the indies I like the best I discover on my own.
Yeah. I'm curious if like Vincent thinks that like we overlooked some of the games that we shouldn't have.
Maybe.
And like we haven't included them in this discussion. I don't know. We
That's
definitely,
true. That's true. Game Manual does play them all, but
yeah, he does. Yeah, but I don't know what that has to do with us.
because I said that you said you can't play them all.
Oh,
But he does play them all.
he does play them all. That's kind of his mission. Yeah. You overlook a lot. Okay, that's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. It's not our fault. We tend to focus on the mainstream stuff. That's true.
I mean, is he talking about GameFace
Overall,
in general?
yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we definitely, because that's what most people care about. Let's be honest. I mean, if we did a whole show that was just nothing about us talking about indie games, no one would show up. Like,
We are about to talk about an indie game.
we are, and we
The
do.
shadow dropped during the
And but we
presentation.
do talk about the big indie games, at least relatively speaking, the big indie games. We don't just blow them off. But I looked through those two events pretty thoroughly, and these were really like the 5 games that caught my eye. Everything else was just like some derivative of something else or a genre that's been done a billion times over. I really don't think that our lack of coverage or our lack of spotting
Don't get
games
too
for
excited about it, Vincent. You wait and see.
What about what?
Axiom Verge 2.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
In
but I was
fact,
like,
we're going to talk about it next.
but the response to that makes me think it's like, oh, good, they're finally talking about this great game they overlooked.
We'll see about that. In fact, that's a perfect transition to just move right on to talk about Axiom Verge 2. I have not played this game at
Rob's
all.
mentioning Ollie World.
Yeah, we've kind of covered that already. And that wasn't new. Like, I should clarify.
Did we? Like, what? Remind me what that is.
It was mentioned in like a show that we did where we were kind of doing the same thing, rounding up stuff. So had been announced already. It wasn't like one of the games that had been announced, which is, to be fair, and maybe I should have said this before we started the topic, I picked games that were just announced for the first time that weren't known quantities, and those were the best games that I came up with from the list. So there were some other stuff, but it was either a new trailer for a game that we already knew about, or like the third trailer for a game we already knew about, or here's another farming sim that doesn't do anything new. And in all honesty, like most of the Nindy stuff kind of fell into those categories. It was either, like for instance, Axiom Verge 2 was a big part of Nintendo's Nindies thing, and it dropped that day. And so that's probably why Vincent was like, oh, you're slagging it, but blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that's what most of Nintendo stuff was. It was stuff that we already knew about, with the exception of the 2 games that I mentioned. And so we're not going to cover indie stuff we've already talked about again, just because they got a new trailer in some random event that happened. So anyway, on to Axiom Verge 2. Full disclosure, I have not played it at all. Matt has played it. And Matt...
as soon as I did not watch the Nintendo or the Xbox things live, but when I saw that Axiom Verge 2 was suddenly coming out that day, I decided to go get it.
Now, we should mention, both of us played the first Axiom Verge.
I did. I liked the first one
great.
a lot.
I really liked it. But it seems that
12 minutes did come out this week, but I haven't gotten to that
12
yet.
minutes isn't out yet.
It's
comes
this
out
week, though.
the 19th. Yeah. And
That is definitely on my list.
And we will talk about that on next week's show. Like, we don't just hate indie games. We just pick and choose which ones we talk about, the ones that other people care about. That's generally how the show works. Let's talk about Axiom Verge 2. I really enjoyed the first one. It is a Metroidvania, and so is this one. This is also a Metroidvania. The first one, I would argue, was pretty focused on combat.
Very much so.
You had guns, which made it feel a lot like a Metroid game to me.
Oh, yeah. It felt like the first one definitely felt like a direct homage to Super Metroid.
It felt more like Metroid than Castlevania.
Yeah.
What I've seen of this one, and I did watch someone play it for quite a while, this one seems more to be in the vein of the Castlevania than the Metroid. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think somewhat. There's more exploration to this.
Yeah.
And more, which is part of its problem. Because I don't how much have I played of it? I played like an hour and a half of this the day it came out, and then I turned it off because I didn't like it. And then when you asked me what I'd played this week for the show, I mentioned that I'd played enough of Axiom Verge 2 to know that I don't like Axiom Verge 2 very much. Yeah, and then I decided to play it some more yesterday in case you decided to put it in the show anyway, which you did.
Because you told me that, and I was like, I was putting the rundown together. I had been putting the rundown together for 2 days at that point, just scraping for stuff to get into the show. And he's like, I played Axiom Verge just long enough to know I don't want to play it anymore. And I was like, no, I need you to play more. So this morning I texted him and I was like, I had to put it in the show. And he's like, well, I played more. And I was like, okay, thank God.
So I played some. I'm probably like three hours, between 3 and 4 hours in, and that's about as far as I'm gonna get. I think I did not expect to bounce off this game the way I have. Like
because we both like the original.
Yeah, I like this general type of game a lot.
There's some confusion, Matt. Is this a prequel or a sequel, or is it just kind of like in the same universe?
It seems to just be made by the same people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I assume there's some interdimensional stuff happening here where you get zapped into an alternate dimension or alternate universe or something.
How does that work? Can you do that at will?
No,
or does the game control?
No, the premise of the game is you activate a thing and you get pulled into a portal thing, and suddenly you're trapped in another universe, and you have to find. There's other people there that were at this research facility, and like they're trying to build a portal to come back, but they haven't been able to because there's a bunch of stuff going on, and of course you're the only one who can solve those problems, basically, because you were the video game protagonist. And there is more like you think it's an elevator, is that, and then suddenly everything goes pixely, and you pop up in a different world.
Okay,
that looks strikingly like the world you just left, but
it's not like it's more than just reskinned, right?
It's not even reskin; it's a different location, but it's all like this. It looks the same. You know, there's places.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, you go outside and it's still snowy, and that's what it looks like. That's the different universe. It's just another Earth-like location, and
Now, the official line on the story that I've read from the developer, their synopsis was, a billionaire CEO is summoned to Antarctica to find her daughter. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's her.
Okay.
That's what you're doing. And then you activate go in the elevator thing, and it turns out to be a portal to another dimension.
Okay, gotcha.
And then she's like, well, I got to go figure this out. And then you get like you'll see here, like she very quickly runs into these the thing that's talking to her. It turns out to be like a nano some kind of nanomachine spirit, like that claims to be some kind of god sort of thing. And you pick up a bunch of those, and each one those are your basic your upgrades. They give you like your superpowers essentially.
Okay.
And very early on, they're basically like, oh yeah, by the way, you're not human anymore, and you don't need to breathe. So if you need to go underwater, you can just go do that, and Nick, you're fine. And like, so something's happening to you that is like
supernatural.
You're becoming transhuman in some way. Like
okay.
These things are, and they all have different personalities, like, and their personalities kind of relate to how they work. And like you run into one that's just a little boy, and you're like, what the hell is that? But the little boy can, you can split him off as like a little like walker drone thing, and it can go in like small passages, and it can also go through these rifts that take you to these. Another alternate kind of mirror
I thought the drones
thing.
were what you controlled in the alternate reality or whatever.
No, that's the alternate reality of the alternate reality you're in. Like, and the drone stuff in the other through the rifts, it feels a lot like Metroid. Like that stuff, like down to the the pipeline hallways you go through that then scroll the screen up one screen and then drop you into like that is very 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 Metroid.
Okay.
The trouble I have with this is that the combat sucks. You can upgrade it and kind of like here's where you see like she basically ends up getting pushed underwater here, and it turns out that she respawns at the save point you were just at. And she's like, what the hell? And it's like, oh, yeah, we reconstituted you from, like, nanomachine stuff or whatever. And she's like, how is that? Because you're not really you anymore. And let's just not think about that too much kind of thing. It's like, it's interesting. And, like, the narrative premise is interesting. The functional thing. And you have the compass, which, kind of lights up in the direction you need to go. But I have found, in terms of having played a lot of games like this, I find a lot of the way you're supposed to go kind of unintuitive. I've spent a lot of time not understanding where I'm supposed to go next. Like I finally got to the place I wanted to get to, and I fought the thing that I had to fight there, and I found the upgrade that I needed for that. And then I'm like, well, wait, now what? Like now there's a dead end. What do I need to go back and do? And I go back and
there's no map.
There is a map, but it doesn't like mark out where you need to go.
So next. It doesn't show you like, hey, here's this door.
No, it's like old school. It's old school like Castlevania Symphony of the Night stuff or whatever.
So it'll have like a mark that'll say this door hasn't been unlocked yet.
There are like markers for stuff like that, but like this place doesn't have a lot of closed doors, and like, you know, even early on you get abilities pretty fast at the beginning of this game. Like you start just having a snow pick, like a pickaxe and a boomerang that you find for some reason.
Yeah, because there's no gun, right? It's
no,
all you get is the boomerang.
Yeah, you just get a boomerang and various ice axes.
What was the gun called in the first one? Like the Disruptor or something?
I can't remember.
It was a huge part of the game.
Yeah, it was. This is a very different game. Like even the fact that I think she's sort of colored like Alucard in terms of the white and the white hair and all that, I think that's probably intentional. But like the problem I have is because like going around and exploring stuff and figuring out where I need to go next, like that's part of these games, right?
Yep.
But one of the reasons it's not a problem in a lot of games like this, which is, you know, like a Castlevania or a Metroid, is that normally I enjoy the movement and the combat. I don't in this. Like, I think the combat in this game is terrible. Like, and maybe it's better as you upgrade her, because you do get upgrades that like let you add skill points to like this combat speed and damage and da. But like early on, like I hate having to run back and fight these things. Like it's annoying, and they're fast, and it's hard to get your life back in a timely manner. And like,
is the game hard?
It's not super hard by the standards of these games, but it's just more like I get bored and I make mistakes, and that's just what happened. I get hit a lot, and then, like, you know, you just respawn at the save point and try it again. It's fine. You know, it's not like Dark Souls. You're not losing progress or anything.
Okay.
But like I get tired of it pretty fast. And then like the stuff you find and the upgrades you find.
Those things are like the Medusa heads right there.
Yeah, I will say I really like the enemy designs, like especially the big ones. Like you fight some bosses and fight some larger things that are really.
Are there bosses? I read somewhere that there are no boss fights in this.
I mean, I had a boss fight. I mean, it's not like an official boss fight, but I fought an enemy half the size of the screen at one point.
That's a boss.
That counts to me. It didn't like specifically ungate anything for me, but I actually ran past it the first time.
Did it have like a big health bar and everything?
It did have a health bar, but I had to hit it like a bunch of times.
Interesting.
But I'll tell you what I actually did is, instead of like using the awkward melee combat and the boomerang and stuff, I ran past it, and then I unlocked the drone, and I came back and I threw the drone out. The drone is way harder for them to hit and uses a separate life bar from the main character. And I just had the drone jump around. It has like this saw blade that you can use as sort of almost like a whack to whack things with it. And I just like ran around with a saw blade and I buzzsawed the thing to death. Like it was really, really easy. I'm like, I don't know if this is how I'm supposed to do this, but I'm gonna do it.
It works, yeah. That's cool though.
It was fun, yeah. So it's a little open ended in that regard, I guess. And it's, you know, it's nice, like. It's nicely not handholdy in terms of what you can do with your abilities once they show you how to do it. Like you get a hacking ability where you just hold the right trigger and it expands out. And the ostensible thing to use it for is to activate ancient machinery. So early on, like when you first get it, it's to use to like activate moving platforms to move you to places you couldn't get otherwise. Mm-hmm. But you can especially once you upgrade it, you can also use it to hack enemies. And then you can use it to hack enemies differently, because that's what it uses energy. So you can spend a certain amount of energy to make an enemy slow down. You can spend more energy to, you know, basically block their weapons, or to make them come to your side, or to, you know, you can do so you can kind of go through this scrolling list of all these effects you can have on different things, and that's interesting. The biggest problem is not.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad.
No, the biggest problem is not that like the concepts are bad. The problem that I have with it is when I have to run back around and do all the backtracking and figure out where I go, I don't enjoy the moment-to-moment gameplay.
So the enemies respawn when you leave
an area? They
don't
respawn aggressively, but they do respawn.
Okay.
And it's just, you know, it's one of those things where it's like you figure out kind of how to deal with them, and that, but it's like not satisfying. You know, like there's something satisfying about hitting that giant wolf every time, or taking out the zombies in a Castlevania game, or like taking out the little bat things that fall from the ceiling in a Metroid game, kind of like that. That's, you know, something I enjoy about that so I don't mind having to run through that room a few times. This one, like the little scorpion things or whatever, I just find them irritating, and they jump. They're very aggressive and they jump around, and it's not like super easy. You can run past them if you want there more easily enough, but like it's just. But then I'm just sort of skipping the game, and I.
So you haven't found the combat very fun or engaging?
Not really.
It's really the root of it.
Not really. I'd rather avoid it as much as I can, and I don't usually do that in these games, and I find it kind of disheartening.
What about the exploration part of it? Have you had any moments of awe where you're like, oh, wow?
Not beyond finding that giant enemy. I thought that was pretty cool, and like. the story behind kind of what the upgrades are and the fact that they're like sort of like machine gods infecting you is kind of interesting. But also like a lot of it just looks like this. It's just gray and black and white and like
it doesn't look as I don't
there's
think
no
it looks
visual
as good
pop
as the last
to it at
one.
all. No,
Yeah.
I don't think so at all. There's no visual pop to it at all. I haven't felt rewarded for exploration in terms of what I've seen or where I've gone. I just feel like I'm being rewarded by like, well, at least you get to move forward now.
Yeah, I thought the art in the last game was stunning.
Oh yeah, it was visual. The first game is visually unlike anything else at its time for sure.
But this,
I mean, obviously it's got reminiscence of Super Metroid in places, but it's its own thing.
But
for
its
sure.
color palette and everything about it was like.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I'm sure it changes eventually, but everything. You know, I went through an underwater section that was a little different, and like you get the ability to sort of jump a little higher, and it changes up the physics a little bit. But like, I don't know. It's just. I'm just kind of bored.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what else to say. Like,
I mean, I'm watching this B-roll. It's not getting me excited to play it. I'll put it to you that way.
And every time you're basically looking for these terminals early on, and every time it's just like, okay, go to the next thing. I was like, okay, like you're not giving me anything. You're not giving me anything visually. You're giving me new abilities, but the new abilities are mostly to get through the new obstacles that I ran into and didn't understand what to do with. And now I can open that door. Cool. Open that door. Oh, it's a shortcut back to where I was before. So what? You know, it's like.
If somebody had just showed this to me, I never would have guessed it was Axiom Verge 2.
No, neither would I. It's
never. I never would look at it and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is.
And I mean, look, to be fair, like also like this thing is really loud. Like I don't know. I'm playing on PS5, and when I turn this game on, it's 10 times louder than the rest of the PlayStation 5.
Weird.
I had to turn like way and like the hits and thing. I turned the sound effects way down because they were much louder than the music, and then like I had to turn my actual system volume way down. And then when I quit the game out, I couldn't hear the PlayStation menu sound effects anymore.
Wow.
That's how low I had to turn it down to make
the game
this sound
tolerable.
like a normal volume. I'm not saying I'm lowering the score for that or anything,
right.
But I thought that was bizarre.
That is odd.
It's like it's way louder than everything else I've ever played on that system, and I don't know why there would be that kind of disparity between the system sound level and the game sound level.
Yeah,
but it is.
I mean, it's how they mixed it, obviously.
It's also like I don't like the sound. Like the sound is very harsh and staticky in places when like the hits don't sound. The hits are not like, you know, like a lot of games have like hit when you hit things or hit enemies or hit boxes or whatever. It's got a nice sort of like crunch sound or a little satisfying.
It's got a little
like
bit of sub to it.
Yeah, I hate all the impact sound effects, and it's just it just goes right up my spine somehow because there's like a weird static. And maybe they're trying to do that. Maybe it's supposed to be like, oh, you're supposed to be in a weird world and it's not supposed to be nice or fun or comforting or whatever. But all I know is I avoid smashing those crates because I hate the sound they make.
Wow.
And I don't have that. I don't do that. I don't have misophonia or anything like that. It's just like I just don't like the sound design in this game.
Interesting. Huh. How much was this, Matt?
I want to say it's $20.
$20?
I think it's 20.
Any clue how long it is? Obviously, you've only played a few hours. And you're not
I don't know. I
finished.
mean, I'd guess it's a decent length. I guess it's like good old, Metroidvania length.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
10,
the
15
last
hours.
one was for sure. It was. I think is 8 or 9 hours, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I played it.
This feels like it's just in terms of how they're approaching this. I would feel this is probably bigger.
Yep.
Just sort of how they work.
And this game is not available for Xbox yet.
No, it's just PlayStation and
Switch. In the PC too, right?
Probably PC, yeah.
Yeah. It's odd that Xbox, for whatever reason, was left out of the initial...
Yeah, I don't know. That is interesting.
I'm sure it's coming eventually, but as of right now, you can't get it on Xbox.
Main story, about 8.5 hours.
Oh, exactly what you said.
Completionist, 14.5 hours.
Yeah, so if you get everything.
So that's about on par with these games.
$20. I mean, if you like it, that's a pretty fair deal, I think. I wish I had played it so I could maybe offer a different opinion on it. But I did watch a lot of it being played, and it just seemed very bland.
Yeah, I mean,
it just didn't feel like it had any kind of a spark to it.
No, and like some of the reviews said that like it starts slow and picks up later, but I'm like, this is real slow. Like I'm not the slow start. There's a one thing if you want to like start slow and ramp up in like the early tutorial stuff, but I feel like I'm past that and I'm still bored. I don't have the patience to do the Final Fantasy X thing where like 40 hours in it gets real good when you get to Grand Pulse. Like that means that if the first
poor design.
If the first 30 to 40 hours of your game are boring, you made a boring game.
Yeah, it's
like
poor design. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I'm not that it was overpriced or badly priced, but I'm kind of sorry I bought this.
Okay.
In the end, like I just feel like I bounced right off it. That may not be the case for everybody. Certainly, the reviews are more positive than I am on this, but especially after
I saw some of the reviews, it's getting like 8.7.
Especially like after what was, and this might be an expectation thing, but especially after what was in my head when you say that the title Axiom Verge 2.
Yeah.
This is not, and I know we go on about like, oh, you can't just repeat yourself and do the same thing over and over again. Well, sometimes.
Well, it needs to be the
if
same
it ain't broke,
game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, otherwise you don't call it Axiom Verge.
Right, you could have put this out under a different name, not Axiom Verge 2, and it would have been maybe.
It feels a little cheap that way.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I assume this is going to connect up later to
somehow.
Because it's a prequel, I guess that's what Vincent said. So I assume it's going to connect up somehow and make more sense in that regard. But like, it starts real gray and dull visually, and
I think anyone who watched the B-roll would agree with you.
And that's what I mean. It's like, at one point you get out of kind of the white, gray, black snow area, and you get into a dull brown area. It doesn't have snow on it. It's like, okay.
Well, it also takes place in Antarctica, which is not a setting that would provide for a variety of locales.
And then once you go to the new dimension, you're in Antarctica. I don't know.
That's funny.
Am I supposed to find the fact that there's brown dirt and like actual small bushes amazing because it's in Antarctica and they don't have those in our Antarctica? Right. Is that I don't know. Like it's maddeningly vague and sort of, and like there's things where it's like, okay, I guess I got to backtrack all the way down, but I don't because I opened that shortcut, I guess. But now where do you want me to go? And that this thing, the compass is lit up over here. I can't get over there yet. Do I need to go around here? I guess I'll check the map. I'll go over here. And I just get there. And it's like, oh, and sometimes you'll find all the way around. I finally got that thing. I got the power to open that. Finally, I can get in that room. I get in that room. And it's like, okay, it's a shortcut back to the room I was already in, except I picked up like a 1-point upgrade thing.
Right.
And that was it. And now, and it's that thing where it's like, okay, I got an upgrade, but I still didn't get the next place I need to go, which is what I would have preferred to do. And now I got to start over and figure out where it wants me to go there because the compass doesn't light up, constantly. It just lights up when you're near the area you need to get to.
A Metroidvania with very little direction.
Yeah, and some people are going to probably love that. Like, a lot of people don't like to be guided like that.
Yeah.
But I'm
not one of them, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I like a balance of it, but like a couple times in this, I've just looked up a walkthrough video to figure out where the next place I need to go is because I don't have the patience to sit through this game's bullshit. Basically.
I'm surprised that there's already walkthroughs of this.
Oh, it's already there's already a full walkthrough I saw up that's like 8 hours long, I guess.
Huh. Interesting. So you do not recommend it?
I don't, no.
Even if you liked the first Axiom?
I really liked the first Axiom Verge. This did not do it for me at all. And maybe I just didn't give it enough time, but I feel like I gave it a few hours. I feel like
that's enough. I mean, you played almost half of the game.
Yeah, I guess.
It's an 8-hour game.
About
almost
a third.
Halfway there.
Yeah. I was going pretty slow because I got lost a lot, so I'd say it's probably more like a third of the game.
Yeah, I wonder too if that finish time is if everyone knows, if the player knows exactly where they're going and they're not like looking for stuff.
I mean, the walkthrough video was like 7 hours and something, and I assume the guy playing that or the girl, whoever
probably played
whoever's playing that, I assume you played it at least once to know what you're doing.
Right.
So
yeah.
It felt like the length for someone that knows what they're doing enough to make a video out of it. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Axiom Verge 2, $20, available for pretty much everything but Xbox, which we hardly ever say anymore. Mm-hmm. Usually we're like, and it's free on Game Pass.
There's other versions, like I guess like there's like PlayStation 5 full version coming later or whatever, or upgrade coming. I don't know.
Yep. So anyway, Matt.
I don't even know what that would be. Like, like, what's the difference?
I mean, my big disappointment is that it doesn't really look like Axiom Verge 2. It looks like the developer, and it is just like one dude. Like, I'm sure he has people helping him now, but still, like, it's his name that's on the game. That's the studio that works on these games. It feels like he created a game that didn't really make sense for Axiom Verge, but he's just like, but there's no way I'm not putting the Axiom Verge name on this game.
I mean, I think I didn't think of it until you said it, but like, the Axiom Verge 1 is Super Metroid and this one is Castlevania is a pretty good way to compare them. And if you're expecting one from the other, you might be surprised at the very least that that's what you get. And I really, I do love the Castlevania formula, but I do not like how the melee. I use the boomerang and the drone constantly because I do not want to fight with the ice axe.
With the hack and slash.
It's just not fun to me. It's too slow. Even when I've upgraded the speed, like I just don't. It's too slow and it doesn't do enough damage. And even when I put upgrades into it, I feel like I'm still underpowered compared to being able to just hit things at range or use the drone, because the drone has a very powerful melee attack with the buzzsaw thing. And if the drone gets destroyed, I just got to back off and wait for the thing to refill and then throw it out again. It feels like you don't even want me to play the game with my character almost.
Interesting.
It's weird.
Okay.
And there's places, of course, you can't do that with because they know you're going to do that. But it's just, and then I get annoyed by that. It's like I'm not getting any positive reinforcement out of anything, I guess.
Out of things that you're enjoying
Yeah.
in the game. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, there you go. That's Axiom Verge 2, $20, but Matt says steer clear. So if you're with us for the beginning of the show, we talked about a trio of Grand Theft Auto remakes, remasters. I guess they're just remasters that are on the way. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about Dead Space being remade, remakes, remasters, huge thing in the industry. And there are tons of franchises that are just sitting there with nothing being done. And so I thought it might be fun to go through some of these franchises that a lot of us are wondering, like, what the hell's going on, and figure out whether we want those games to be remastered and remade, or whether those franchises just need a new game entirely. So you have we're basically choosing between two things. Either you want one remade, remastered, so basically a better version of an existing game in the franchise, or whether we just want a whole brand new game in the franchise. Let's see. We're going to kick it off with another game that was rumored this week to be being revived or being revitalized, I think was the exact verbiage that Bethesda used. QuakeCon is coming up, and already rumors have been circulating that we're going to get information on a new Quake. And this is actually what prompted me to do this topic, was they're not sure what it's going to be. The verbiage was revitalized. So that could be a brand new game, or that could be that they're going to take an old Quake and just do a complete rework of it. Matt, what would you say about Quake? Do you think that there should be a new game in the franchise, or do you think that they should just go back to one of the old ones and just repolish it and make it something newer and better?
I could not possibly care less.
Really? Never a Quake player?
No.
What about Unreal Tournament? Because they're both in
I
the kind of
I
the
liked
same
Unreal
boat.
Tournament. I didn't play it very seriously, but I spent a number of evenings wasting time on Facing Worlds, certainly. I mean, the only Quake that I've played the Quakes, but the first one was fine. Second one maybe was a little better because it had the sci-fi elements to it. Quake 3 I didn't play much because it was a kind of deathmatch that I have no interest in and what I'm not any good at. And I don't actually remember what Quake 4 was, so I don't care. I guess I would maybe consider playing a revamped Quake 2 remake of the campaign or something. But Quake's going to be a multiplayer-focused one, just like the last thing they tried to reboot it with.
I don't think people even expect a campaign with Quake anymore.
I wouldn't think so, no. Who cares? Like, make tribes. at least you'll be happy then.
Exactly. I didn't put tribes on this list because I'm the only one who cares about it. But I'll just go on the record right now that for tribes, I would actually prefer a remaster or a remake over a new game.
Yeah, because you don't trust them to make that good again.
I don't. No. I mean, they've tried. They've tried
to
make tribes like 3 times. They've never been as good as the first game. None of them. So for me, tribes, absolutely remake, remaster the first game. I still believe it would be a smash hit. I still think it was that far ahead of its time, and enough people have not played it or even heard of Tribes.
Yeah, tons of people would not even know it was a remake.
Right. They'd just be like, wow, there's
look at
this
this
shooter
thing
where I have a jetpack and I can ski across the maps. For me, Tribes, definitely remake, remaster the first one. Don't even try to make a new one. Next up, Deus Ex. Hasn't been gone all that long, but I don't think there's anything in the cards for this. Would you prefer a remake or a remaster of the first Deus Ex, or would you prefer that they keep going in this direction that it has been going?
I mean, I do like the new ones. I would like, the last one, Mankind Divided does pretty much end. Clearly, Mankind Divided was part 2 of 3.
Right.
Yeah. Or at least they had to divide it up. The original idea had to be cut into what was presumably going to be 2 games, and they never got to make the second one. So I'd like to see them finish that story. I do like the Adam Jenkins storyline of the sort of micro reboot, I guess they did of it. At the same time, one of my dirty hot takes of gaming is I think the original Deus Ex is kind of a bad game.
It is. I mean,
ambitious, had a lot of
for its
time. A lot of cool ideas, but like actually playing it, I kind of hate. And like a lot of the stuff that they do, I mean, some of it's technological limitations of its time. So I would be interested in a full ground up modern gameplay design sensibility remake of Deus Ex 1, like what they did with Hitman, like completely revamp it, still recognizable as what it was, but completely redo it into something that is playable by someone 21 years later. I would be interested in that. But if you made me, I put a Gep gun to my head and made me pick, I would probably like to finish the Adam Jenkins story more.
Interesting. I think I would choose the remake, and it would be a remake. It would have to be remade of the first Deus Ex. A remaster is not going to get it done. It would have to be rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah. Now you asked me about System Shock. That's a different story.
Well, we didn't ask that one because
we are getting a remake of System Shock,
and we're
which
getting
is
a
also
new one.
Well, I thought that was dead.
Is System Shock 3 dead?
It's indefinite hold, but I think System Shock 3 is dead.
Generally means it's dead. Okay. They tried, though. They did try to make a new game in the series.
But I would also rather have a remake of that one. That would System Shock 1. Actually, I'd rather have a remake of System Shock 2 because that's the better game.
It is, yeah.
But if this one gets better, maybe it does well, maybe they'll do a System Shock 2 remake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would definitely prefer
all those early
ground up remake of Deus
all those
Ex.
early. I hate the term, but all those early immersive sims have aged like milk.
Yeah, I mean, Deus Ex was the original immersive sim. Yeah.
Well, the most meaningless genre term I have. Actually, no, now it's the second most, because immersive sim, all games try to be immersive, and it's not really simulating anything, is it?
No.
It's just two words you wanted to say, so you don't have to say you're playing a third-person adventure game, a first-person adventure game, right?
Yeah.
But I finally heard a new genre term that is dumber than immersive sim, and that is search action.
What's that?
Which is something that people are...
Where's Waldo?
Search action is what some very annoying people are trying to rebrand Metroidvanias as, because they think the term Metroidvania is stupid or is too specific to two other games, so they want to call it more search action. You want to talk about a phrase that tells you nothing about the thing you're trying to describe? Search action.
Yeah, that's bad. It'll never catch on.
No.
But
maybe they should have called Axiom Verge 2 Search Action. That should have been the title of that game.
I'll be honest,
because that's what it is.
I didn't think Metroidvania was going to catch on either. So
yeah, well,
and here we are.
Well, here's another hot take for you. Proposal. Metroid games are not Metroidvanias.
What are they?
Metroid games.
Right.
Metroidvania specifically was coined to describe the Castlevania level up kind of action RPG take on the Metroid's formula.
Yeah.
Metroid doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Metroid does not do what the Metroidvania formula does. It's just Metroid. That's why you had to combine Metroid with Castlevania to describe that subgenre. Metroid has never gone in that direction.
Axiom Verge kind of lays that bare, right? Because the first game, you can very clearly line it up with one of the two, and in the next one, you can line up with the other one.
And we do use them interchangeably. We use Metroidvania to describe Metroid-style games anyway, because it's just simpler. We know what we're talking about when we say that. But technically, Metroid is not the same as what we think of as a Metroidvania.
It's true. Yeah.
It's just a weird.
It's just one part.
It's just a weird way to split nerd hairs. It's, it doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying. All genre names are made up anyway. Who cares? But anyway, yes, I would rather play more Adam Jenkins than do a remake of.
I think part of it might be that obviously those games are vastly superior to the original Deus Ex.
Well, also I just like to know how the story ends, because as much as I thought Mankind Divided sort of felt a little unfinished and rough in places, I do think the story of that time period in that universe is interesting, and I like to see where it goes.
Okay. Next game. This is one near and dear to both our hearts. F-Zero. What should happen with F-Zero, Matt? Because I'll say this, like the game we're seeing right now, F-Zero GX.
F-Zero GX is great.
I mean, I just don't know that they can make.
Anything better than
a better
that?
Game?
I don't know.
I mean,
here's the thing, though. You kind of don't need to remake this game.
It's still gorgeous.
Like I can slap this thing.
There.
Yeah, I can slap this thing on my GameCube when I get home and play it, and I'm still gonna have a great time. It's still great. I'm not gonna have any complaints.
But nobody has GameCubes.
Well, I mean, they should just make it playable. I mean, I know tons of people with GameCubes.
I mean, I think that answers the question though, which is remake or remaster. Is right.
I mean,
for
yeah, not even. I mean, remaster. Sure, like you could just make this playable on modern systems. That would be fine. I would like to see them try F-Zero again, but I worry that they'd
screw it up.
I'd worry that they'd come up with one of the classic Nintendo, we gotta plus it and make it weird things, and it would just not be as pure as this game is. Because that's one of the things that's great about GX and AX is they are pure F-Zero.
They nailed them.
They are F-Zero in a way. They are the template of all F-Zeros. They are the DNA of F-Zero laid bare in a disc form.
Yeah, it's true.
And I just feel like you'd get, they'd be some kind of weird thing where, like, I don't know, you have to grow corn or something to power your. I don't know what they do. I'm just, you know what I'm talking about.
If you remember, the story mode in this is very bizarre.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there is probably some corn growing in there somewhere. Then there's Captain Falcon's nipples that are like gold coins.
They're well, I mean. The man's got to look. He's got to stick with it.
I mean, one thing I would say is if they were to remake or remaster this game, make it easier.
Yeah, you probably want an easy mode.
Way too hard.
Oh, it was brutal.
I don't know if I ever finished the campaign, actually.
Well, look at that. You can't even get out of third place right now.
Yeah. It's hard as balls.
Yeah, I mean, it was made by Sega, and it was made as a companion piece to an arcade game whose job is to take your quarters, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and there
the
was
pedigree
an arcade
was
version
there.
of this, too.
Yeah.
Where you could take your GameCube memory card into the arcade and slide it in.
And you could keep your career sort of concurrent with both
between
versions.
the arcade and home versions of it.
Because that was the period where Nintendo was leaning very hard on connectivity.
You're right. In bizarre ways, I might add.
This was one of the better ways. I thought that was cool. If we had an arcade anywhere near us at that time that had F-Zero AX, that would have been fun.
What about F-Zero X on N64? What did you think of that?
I liked that, but I didn't feel it had the adrenaline kick that this one did.
The hardware was incapable of making a good F-Zero.
It had a lot of cool stuff in it, and we played a lot of that. I remember it had the fact that it you could do so many players. You do 4 players.
One of the few games that actually ended up working with the 64 DD as well.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it, but like this is F-Zero. When you say F-Zero, I think of this game.
The reason I brought up F-Zero X is because if I would have broached that same question with myself during that era, should this game be remade or remastered, I probably would have thought at that point that like that's as good as F-Zero could get in 3D, only for this to come out years later and totally obliterate it. But I don't know. Like I really question whether creating a new F-Zero would make a game better than this one.
I have squeaked that one out.
Yep. That's the way all these races are in this game. They're all like that. You either win by the skin of your teeth or you crash and burn and finish 28th out of 30.
God, the music was great.
Yeah,
like just
it's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. The game's awesome. That's why it's hard for me to imagine that someone could make something better. And I don't think
I wonder
around to do it.
Well, sometimes I wonder if that's part of why we haven't gotten another one. Is like everybody's sort of like the story of how Metroid Prime got made. Like there were a bunch of teams that Nintendo asked internally about doing it, and none of them wanted to be the follow-up act to Super Metroid.
Yeah,
like there were a bunch of them were like, we don't feel like we can do that, especially on the N64 hardware. That was actually one of the caveats.
I mean, consensus top 5 game of all time.
Yeah,
that's a tough act to follow.
But I want if I had to make a new F-Zero game, I would be intimidated as hell.
I would be. I wouldn't. I would just remake this one.
Yeah.
I think that's the best answer for F-Zero. I know Nintendo fans probably don't want to hear that, but a lot of those Nintendo fans have probably never played this game. Let's just be honest about it.
I mean, do a remake / remaster of this. Maybe you can add some new tracks, add some new things,
or add a track editor which was supposed to be in the DD version of it.
Add some gyro
F-Zero
control.
X. Yeah.
Do it up.
Yeah.
Definitely, make it happen.
But you already have a ton of tracks. You already have all the cars built. It wouldn't be that big of a project. And it was a GameCube game. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't play GameCube games. Like you could work on a lot of stuff from GameCube that hasn't been brought into the modern era. That's one of them. I am interested to see what people in chat say about it, though.
Sneaky Charlotte Snake says it looks like an ugly Wipeout.
An ugly Wipeout. Wow. Interesting. Al Vincent does bring up the good point, the risk reward of using your quote unquote health to boost.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that only F-Zero has. Vincent says 90% of the Switch's audience would bounce off it and its difficulty. That's why I said that you'd have to provide easier.
You'd have to have a classic mode. And
I mean, the story mode in that was hard as nails.
Oh yeah,
that was in the height of my powers. Like that was before I got old and my reflexes dulled.
Yeah, I never finished it. I
never finished the story mode. I tried so hard, and I just couldn't do it.
No, you would definitely need like a classic mode and a arrange mode or original, like some kind of version that isn't called like super easy baby mode, but is super easy baby mode, and that would absolutely be the one I play.
I mean, if they released it as it was on the GameCube, people would hate it.
Oh, people would cry.
Could you imagine like the reviews?
You'd ruin Christmas.
On, like, Metacritic.
Yeah. There's children screaming at their Switches all across the world.
It is interesting, though, how yet in other areas, like really difficult games that are in vogue, like the Souls stuff, like, but you have to like be known to be difficult, and then it's okay.
Well, also
like,
the Souls stuff is difficult in a fair way.
Right.
This game, like a lot of times when you hear this, like, what the fuck was that?
Just bad luck.
There's bad luck, or just like no one trusts racing game AI. Like we know that. Like it's.
Well, also with this one, it's like you're going around tubes. Like,
right.
It's just
and
there's a lot of random elements.
It's very hard to find the optimal line in this game. Yeah. And I mean, to me, this was like, I didn't think racing game AI could be more frustrating than Diddy Kong Racing. But
there you go.
You pulled it off, Sega. Well done.
All right, let's move on. We have a bunch more games to get to. This is fun. I enjoy doing this. Let's see. Next up, Twisted Metal.
Oh, let it stay dead. Bury that thing. Bury it deep.
Really?
I don't like Twisted Metal. I never thought the car combat thing was good.
Well, the Destruction All-Stars that was just recently released, that is not a good sign for future car combat projects.
No.
Let's be honest. I mean, if you're Sony especially. And again, this is relevant because David Jaffe, there's rumors going around about a new Twisted Metal coming.
Yeah, I've heard some of that.
And to launch in conjunction with the upcoming TV show. And David Jaffe has been...
Oh, right. They're making a TV... What the hell is going on?
And Jaffe has been consulted about the TV show. He has not been consulted about a potential video game. So that makes you wonder if it's legitimate or not. But it also begs the question, like, would you remake Twisted Metal Black? Or would you allow some studio, or maybe Jaffe, to create another new Twisted Metal? Now, keep in mind, the last Twisted Metal that Jaffe made was not good.
I would argue that none of them have been good. I don't like any Twisted Metals.
I thought the second one was pretty good.
2?
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't like these games. I think they're unbalanced. I think they're like just chaotic in a way that just feels out of control and not interesting. They are intensely of their time. Like it is such 90s grim. Look at that screen. It's just you thought the 360 era was brown. Like what the hell am I looking at?
I never forget the first time I played this series. I went over to a friend's house and he explained to me that in order to like fire a rocket, I had to like tap like left, right, and up on the D-pad just to like fire a gun.
Yeah, there's special like fighting game moves. Yeah.
I was like, what? I'm like, where's just the fire button? They're like, there is no fire button. I'm like,
right. You gotta do a special missile. Yeah. No, it's for this one. I would say do a new game because at least that has a chance of being good.
I would argue that too. Some people do like Twisted Metal Black still.
I know. I realize that there's everything has its fans.
Yeah.
I have never found these games fun. Any kind of game. I mean the Star Wars one, the other ones they've done. There was a weird sort of the car combat mini genre had like a weird surge at one point and just sort of disappeared after the Dreamcast era, more or less. I guess like was it Twisted Metal Black was really they did more of them, but Twisted Metal Black was the last time it made any kind of impact on anything.
Yep. Lesteva says I still play Twisted Metal 2. So some people still like it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have them somewhere. Like I remember Twisted Metal 2 vaguely. Wasn't that the one with the guy strapped to the two giant monster truck wheels? Yep. I mean, that's funny.
What was his name?
Axel.
That's that's funny. Because he's an
axle. Yeah, I think.
That's great. Okay, let's move on. Next up,
You gotta work for me not to like a game in which a van transforms into a robot and shoots missiles.
That's true.
But like
I do not like that.
I do not like Twisted Metal.
Next up, Beautiful Joe. Capcom's one of the Capcom 5, right?
Yeah.
One of the 5 games they made exclusively for GameCube at first.
Right, yeah, that
didn't last. And then they ended up making a sequel, right?
They did. Yeah, they made a sequel, and then they made like a Smash Brothers kind of Red Hot Rumble.
Yeah. But what about the core base beat 'em up style Beautiful Joe franchise? What would you do with it, Matt? Would you remake this first one, or would you launch a new game?
I would do a new one.
Yeah. This game looks really dated, I think.
Dated, and I don't think it works anymore with modern. I mean, it was hard to kind of master back in the day, and I think now it would be even harder, especially because a lot of indie games, do have side-scrolling stuff have taken some cues from this game.
Yep.
And I think this would just feel primitive now.
Well, it was released.
It's been iterated on since.
It has. It was released at a time where bullet time was like the hot thing.
The post-Matrix era.
Yeah, where everyone was trying to do bullet time in games in some way.
There was
some shape.
There was also sort of the novelty of the fact that it's referencing like the Henshin a Go-Go stuff. It's referencing Super Sentai, like the Power Rangers, where we got the Power Rangers from, like kind of that tradition of the Ranger team thing in Japan. And it was unique in that it was really addressing that and running with that in a way that other media, you didn't see it otherwise. I think that has become, because Power Rangers is now a very long running thing. It's not quite as unique in that regard anymore, at least in the West. I think you'd need to reinvent him and kind of everything again.
You definitely would need to look at all the powers and figure out which ones still work and which ones don't.
Like, there's definitely something here, but I think you would probably need to take it out of side-scrolling, turn it into something a little more, I don't know, not freeform isn't what I'm looking for, but like, something that like has a little more depth to it, both visually, like, maybe I don't know if it needs to be like a 3D like character action beat 'em up or anything, but like you got to do something different with it than this.
It was also hard as balls.
Oh, it was definitely.
It was really hard. This is another game I don't know if I ever finished it or not.
I did finish the first one. I never finished the second one, and I barely even touched the Smash Brothers thing.
I will say this: even to this day, it still is unique. There's no other game that plays like it, and there's no other game that looks like it. Whether how it plays or how it looks, that's up to you.
I mean, a lot of the Capcom those games were like that. I mean, it's a pretty blatant Zelda clone, but I wouldn't say Okami has a lot of direct comparisons.
That's true.
Yeah,
Piano 3. That game was
Piano
bad.
3, bad, but like
no other game looks like it.
No, there are very few weird rhythm ass shaking shooters around, maybe for good reason.
And there was Dead Phoenix, which never even was released.
Happened.
It just died. So, Dead Phoenix.
Yeah, very very accurately titled game in the end.
Yeah, but I would say if you're going to do a new Beautiful Joe game, it's going to have to be a new game.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any saving these old ones in 2021 and beyond. It's just there's certain parts of them that are just too dated, and they're the core of the game.
Yeah, like the best. I mean, they pulled off the kind of the remake remaster of Wonderful 101.
Yeah,
which was
that's a newer game though.
Well, it's a newer game, but also I would say it's sort of a descendant of these.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think you would need to reinvent Joe. Drastically.
Yep, I'd agree with that. It does look unique, though, still to this day. There's nothing else that looks quite like it. And the whole film motif, like, it's a weird game for sure. I'm surprised that game hasn't become worth a good bit of money over time.
Yeah,
it didn't sell very well.
No, but it did get a lot of ports. So
that's true.
It's still accessible.
It did end up coming to PS2, and yeah, you're right. And that does make a big difference. Okay, next up. Here's one that people are going to grind their teeth over. Bloodborne. What do you do with Bloodborne, Matt? Do you remake Bloodborne for PS5 or PS6, or do you create Bloodborne 2?
I think you do Bloodborne 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long.
No, I do think you do a full PS5 update for it. At least unlock the frame rate for the first game. But I think you do Bloodborne 2 if the option presents itself.
I agree. I think that that's the right decision. It's not so old that it feels dated or even really looks dated at this point. It still looks good.
It still looks fine. I mean, if you unlock the frame rate, you're done.
Yeah.
I think.
So maybe this is a double whammy. You remaster the first one and make a sequel.
Yeah, I don't need a Demon's Souls style remake.
Right.
I just need it to look good and run well
better. Yeah.
On the PS5 and then do a Bloodborne 2.
I mean, it's still very pretty.
Oh yeah, it still looks great.
It does, yeah.
It should be running at 60. That's all.
For sure.
Fix the frame pacing, etc. But like,
yeah, I agree with you on that one. Do you think we'll ever get Bloodborne 2, Matt?
No,
I don't either, man. It really isn't.
They would have done
like
it by now, I think.
Yeah. I know that'll disappoint some people, but I really don't think we're ever going to get a sequel to that.
It doesn't seem like it.
Does Sony own that IP?
Yes.
From doesn't own it. Sony
I don't
owns
think
it.
so. No, I think that's Sony's, and that's one of the reasons we haven't seen it pop up anywhere else. Because they published it. Like as far as I know, they paid for it.
They paid for it. Yeah. Which.
That's also same reason Demon's Souls had to get a PS5 remake, or we're never seeing it anywhere else.
Right. And with Sony holding those cards,
at best, I think the best thing we can hope for, I think, is a PC version of Bloodborne. That's
realistic.
That's
I
the
think.
best we get.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. I think that'll probably happen.
Compared to a sequel, yes, I would say so.
Because I mean, it's a shame.
And then if you do that, maybe you can take the work that was done on that, and that can help make the PS5, patch or something.
It is a shame that Sony owns the IP. Because if From owned it, I think we would get a sequel.
Right, but at the same time, by From's own admission, if they didn't, this wouldn't exist.
Wouldn't have happened, right.
Yeah.
Maybe they can buy the IP back someday, and that's about the only way I would see it, because unfortunately, Sony's standards are so high.
Well, the other thing you could argue is, I mean, obviously From's busy because they're making Elden Ring, but you could also argue, it's like, sure would be nice to have Bloodborne right about now, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
With your empty release schedule.
Commander Fett asked, don't you think that Sony would have Bluepoint make a sequel since they did such a good job on Demon's Souls?
They might.
That's not a terrible idea.
I mean, there's a lot of rumors flying around that Bluepoint's next project might be Bloodborne Remake.
That makes a lot of sense. I do wonder how From would feel about Bluepoint making the sequel, but
I mean, I feel like
they don't own it, so there's not a whole lot
I think
they can say
remaking the first game is different from making a sequel. Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. Although the other thing is, like, I would imagine Bluepoint has a working relationship with them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And maybe there's some.
They may trust him at this point.
They trust him. It might be some give and take. At a certain point, From's got to move on. Miyazaki's at least got to move on and do other things. Like, maybe he doesn't want to do Bloodborne.
That could be.
Maybe he'd be fine passing that on to
I don't remember any quotes from him about that one way or another.
I can't remember.
Yeah, because I think he's afraid to talk about it because
right,
it's all in Sony's
jinx
hands.
it, basically. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Next up. Dark Souls. I know they're kind of similar, but they're not. And these games are starting to look a little dated at this point.
The first one, certainly.
Would you want a Dark Souls 4, or would you rather they remake the first Dark Souls?
I think I'd like to see a Demon's Souls quality remake of the first one.
I'd agree with that. Yep. I totally agree with that. I have tried to play this game
I would like
many
to
times.
see From move on past the Dark Souls game. I mean, obviously they're making the same, Elden Ring is not completely divorced from what Dark Souls is. Mm-hmm. Neither was Bloodborne, neither was Sekiro, but like I'd rather see them do new things. I've been happy with Bloodborne and Sekiro, and Elden Ring looks cool. Move on. Like, don't get stuck in the Dark Souls world forever. Like, I feel like that story's told. That you've done Dark Souls.
It always trips me up watching trailers for Dark Souls because I've played it for many hours and I've never seen any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's like
I'm like, oh, cool. Like, when does that happen? It's funny.
If you know what you're doing, like 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like it's
It's funny. I agree with you. I think a remake of the first one. It was kind of like their first shot at like that whole formula. Like, obviously you're not going to nail it on the first try. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of people have a strong
I think
compunction towards.
I think the majority of Dark Souls fans would say the first one's the best one.
Really?
Easily.
Interesting.
Easily.
Why is that? Quickly.
The main star of the show is the level design.
Okay, so they think the level design is the best in the first?
The fact that it's a giant maze that interconnects with itself.
Okay.
And makes a lot of structural and geometric sense while doing it. It is a triumph of level design.
Yeah, I mean, that whole series is.
And it was a refinement of how Demon Souls worked. It brought in the Estus flasks, which was less irritating than a limited use, healing item like the grass was. My favorite one is 2, which is a tremendously controversial opinion because a lot of people that like Dark Souls hate 2. They think it ruined everything and blah, 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 blah. They did screw up a few things at launch. The hitboxes and the tracking were bad. They fixed a lot of that in the sins of the first Scholar. And then Dark Souls 3, a lot of people put Dark Souls 3 at number 2 as a kind of second rank. You rarely see someone say Dark Souls 3 is their favorite one.
Which is crazy, because it should be the best of the 3.
It's not.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 1 is by far the favorite of the Souls fandom.
Interesting.
Like, I don't think that would be controversial to say at all that Dark Souls 1 is the most loved of the 3.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We got more games to look at and franchises to look at. Next up, Jak and Daxter.
Oh.
This is a tough one because the first game in this series in particular is rougher than
I will say
the others.
I will say a new game because I never want to play that first game again.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. It's just it's too set in the past, the first one.
It is a weak ass sidequel of Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
like it's a tremendously uninspired 3D platformer
it was very pretty.
Pretty, sure. But there's a reason Jak 2 was drastically different.
Yeah.
Because the first one was not going to sustain conceptually through multiple games.
Yeah.
It just didn't do it well.
There's just lots
especially
of
compared to like the 3 big platformer mascot games that launched almost simultaneously on PlayStation was this, Ratchet and Clank, and Sly Cooper. Which of the 3 of those is the boring one? This one.
Jak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was.
Sly Cooper and Ratchet had ideas and verve and characters that just weren't like anything else. And this was just like, they made a Nintendo platformer, except they weren't very good at it in comparison.
I never really liked these characters either.
No,
I always found them annoying.
They are. I think they get better, or at least Daxter gets better in 2 and 3. I know 2 and 3 are also sort of relics of their time.
Yep.
Which is an intentional reference to the fact there's relics all through this fucking game. That like they're very 90s. Even though they weren't made in the 90s, they are very 90s grimdark, edgy Image Comics nonsense.
He has a goatee.
He gets a soul patch as you go on. And he's like, they kind of tried to make it into GTA. It's sort of like open world,
and then he'll be right in the.
And there's a little of that in Ratchet where he kind of ends up as going commando and sort of ending up in the war zone stuff and all that. It gets a little bit like, but it never takes itself seriously. And this I never felt like the Jak series figured out what it wanted to be.
Nope, and they didn't either because they put out a racing game and like a weird shooter and like
I've said, the first Naughty Dog game I actually like is Uncharted 1.
Interesting.
I've never had any use for Naughty Dog until Amy Hennig took over.
And now you don't like Uncharted either.
No, it didn't. I mean, it's still like Last of Us.
Yeah.
I mean,
how can you not? Okay.
But yeah, I have no fondness for. I love Ratchet and I love Sly Cooper, but this was the dog of the PS2 mascot era
stuff
for me.
I'd agree. Yeah. Next up, Splinter Cell.
Ugh.
That first game set the world on fire.
Yeah, but I don't want to play it again. But also, I don't trust them to make a good Splinter Cell.
I mean, let's be honest. There still aren't games doing what that game did. Mm-hmm. Like, there still aren't games where you're creeping around shooting out light bulbs. And, like, if there's, like, one piece of your elbow in the light, like, you're discovered.
Right. But one of the reasons there isn't is because that's really annoying.
It is. Yeah, it is annoying.
Like, Splinter Cell, as much as a technical triumph it was at the time, and how amazed I was to play it in 720p in my projection LCD TV through component cables at the time. Like, it's kind of emblematic of the thing that, like, Adam used to say, where, like, the stealth games he doesn't like are the ones that are just when you're doing what you do in a normal action game but slower.
Right.
Which is pretty much what Splinter Cell is to me.
It is, yeah.
It's just like it's like in a normal game it's just like, oh, I'm hiding behind a thing, we're gonna jump out and do that, and like Splinter Cell is like, no, dude, you need to wait. Okay, well,
why?
how just wait. Oh, you missed it. Yeah, you got to wait again. It says, I was like, okay, I'm going to go have a sandwich or
that
something.
That is pretty accurate.
It's like,
that is how it was. So I think we're both in agreement that new game.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
Does a new game...
What does a new game look like for this?
Does a new game even work at this point? I mean,
I don't know what you do. I mean, I guess you do kind of a Hitman-y thing, but like with less formulaic like puzzle box element, a little more freeform.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, also, like, is there a mark? I mean, I feel like the Tom Clancy thing is sort of morphed into the open world multiplayer thing, like that Ghost Recon and Division sort of emblem, represent.
Yeah.
And Rainbow Six Siege was there. Like, I don't know where Sam Fisher fits anymore.
I mean, does he fit? Does people even care
I mean,
about
he
him
popped up in Wildlands.
as a character anymore? Like, does he matter?
I mean,
he was just like a generic military dude.
Yeah.
With a good voice actor.
What was he, third echelon, whatever they call it?
Yeah.
Third echelon, whatever. I mean, like, also, like, it's not the early 2000s. It's not the post 9/11 rah, let's go military power jingoism of the 2000s anymore. Like, the idea of a gruff-voiced white dude who runs around doing things that he's not allowed to do because it's against international law, but because it's what America needs right now. Like, that's not really a big appeal right now. It's one of the reasons G.I. Joe can't get off the ground in the movies.
What's Ubisoft going to do when they run out of Tom Clancy content to use?
We'll never know because they never will.
I mean, eventually there's not going to be anything that he's created that they can base stuff on.
Oh, they haven't based anything on stuff he's done for decades.
Really?
Ghost Recon's not based on.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with any of his work.
No.
Really? I didn't know
Splinter
that.
Cell has nothing to do with anything.
I thought it did.
No. I mean, they did do books about it after the fact. But no, Tom Clancy's just been a brand for longer than.
I didn't know that.
Longer than they've been making video games out of it. Frankly, like he hadn't written one of those books since Rainbow Six.
Really?
Yeah, as far as I know, everything was Ghostwriters. They just slapped the name on as a brand.
I didn't know that. Like I said, you learn something every episode of GameFace.
Ubisoft has made most of their Tom Clancy stuff up out of whole cloth. All it had to be was like a moderately believably realistic military thing.
Because it's funny. It's not like I would, looking back, I would have been like, oh yeah, Tom Clancy. If you want to make military games, you need that name attached to your game. Like I would never have said that.
No.
Like Ubisoft established him for me. And then I just assumed that he was writing all these books, creating this lore. No. Interesting.
He's just a brand. There's a reason Ubisoft bought it. They own Tom Clancy as a brand.
Yeah.
Because they literally, like you said, you know about that mainly because of them.
It's true.
And Red Storm Entertainment at the time, which was Clancy's development house, basically.
Yeah.
No, by the time by the turn of the century, Tom Clancy was just a brand name you slapped on a military novel to get it in the airport.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay.
As far as I know, Rainbow Six is the last one he personally wrote, which was a long time ago. And oh boy, it was very long in and of itself.
Maybe they got all the material out of that for all their games.
And that was obviously they directly based the early Rainbow Six games on that. Mm-hmm. But almost like the Splinter Cell stuff, the Ghost Recon stuff, all that, Hawks.
That's right.
All End War, all that stuff was whole cloth from Ubi.
Wow. Okay.
All it had to do was, and they share characters here and there. You know, but
that's about it.
Jack Ryan doesn't show up a lot in the Ubi games. You'll notice. I think he might be a separate license. But.
Okay. All right. Here's the last one, and this is a classic, a true classic. Final Fantasy Tactics.
Oh. I guess a new one.
It has to be a new one,
because I hate the first one.
Oh, you don't like Final Fantasy Tactics?
One of my least favorite games of the PS1.
Wow.
I despise that
I did not
game.
know this about you, Matt.
I'm a Shining Force guy and a Fire Emblem guy. I hate the way Final Fantasy Tactics presents itself and runs terrain stuff, and the fact that you can take a chocobo with you, but it counts as one of your characters, so you've annihilated 1/5 of your firepower by taking a stupid bird with you, and it doesn't even make you more powerful. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it's a miracle if you can find 4 squares that are next to each other. The game really agrees are actually next to each other. I hate Final Fantasy Tactics.
Wow.
Story's great. Story's really good.
Yeah,
Characters
really
really great. The music's phenomenal. I fucking hate that game. Just playing it.
Right.
I do not like Final Fantasy Tactics at all.
I did not know this
did
about
like the GBA one.
Tactics Advance.
Tactics Advance. I did like that one a fair amount. But that original PS1 game, the War of the Lion thing,
Okay, so you agree with me that the story is amazing.
Yeah, the story's great.
So wouldn't a remake be better? Where
no, because if you change it to the way I like it, everyone who likes it would hate it.
Oh, interesting.
Because I just make it into Fire Emblem, basically.
Right.
Like I would.
I mean, they probably would if they remade it. That's probably what it would become.
I don't know.
But it would have a great story because the story from the first game is awesome.
They'd remake it and they'd break it up into 4 different parts. It would take 20 years to make them all, and they'd all be voiced by different people. and then there would be a whole section where you have to go talk to some guy on a motorcycle who wasn't there in the first game anyway, but he's there because they thought he looked cool. And then there'd be a whole side thing where you have to go on a date with a character that had 4 lines in the first one, and then you have to not have that matter because you still have to tell the same story, and then it doesn't matter anymore anyway. And who cares?
Wow, I never knew this about you, Matt. I don't
like that game at all.
That is one of the classics that almost everyone agrees that they love, but not the case for this one.
Nope.
Interesting.
Nope. I don't even like looking at it.
Wow, it does have a great story.
It does. Absolutely.
I would absolutely choose a remake of the first one.
Yeah. You know what I would choose instead? Suikoden 2.
Yeah, I mean that's great too.
Remake of Suikoden 2.
That's great too.
Which is an equally good story and doesn't make me angry to play.
Yeah, and look, I'm not disagreeing with any of your points. I agree with all of them. You're right. There's all these goofy contrivances with the game, but I think the story carries that game, and I think you could very easily fix all of those little technical issues that came. I mean, think about it.
I mean, they already remade it once, and it didn't fix anything for me.
That's true.
War of the Lion.
That's a good point. Yeah, but I mean, put resources into it.
Sure.
Do a PS5.
Sure.
Tactics.
Hell, as long as we're doing what we do with Final Fantasy VII, why don't we turn it into an action game?
Yeah.
Screw it.
Yeah.
Makes as much sense as anything Square does.
I mean, that's
right?
what it did, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they did turn Final Fantasy VII into an action game, and they would probably do the same with Tactics if we let them do it.
I mean, I'm sure they can make Ramza squeeze very slowly, shimmying along corridors, just make you really feel like you're on the adventure you were with Cloud.
Yep. Let's see what people thought about Tactics. I love Final Fantasy Tactics, but Square shouldn't touch it. So Herbatronic is saying it's perfect the way it is. Don't.
I mean, that's also a valid. If you do love that game, I can absolutely understand not trusting Square to touch it today.
And Fire Native says, Matt, we don't even know you anymore. I was surprised to hear that too, Fire Native. I really thought Matt was a fan of that, but yeah, I guess not. Okay.
I have liked Final Fantasy. I like Final Fantasy 6. I like Final Fantasy 12. I like Final Fantasy 14, although I haven't been able to devote 300 hours to get into Stormbringer or whatever the expansion stuff. I am okay with 8 and 9, but for the most part, I think everything after 6 is a disaster.
That's pretty accurate.
And the first Final Fantasy I finally did not finish, that I just stopped playing, was 10.
I liked 9.
I like 9. I don't love 9, but I like 9.
Once they started going for the teen heartthrob pop star stuff,
well, I have a whole
that's
thing.
where I started checking.
I have a whole thing about that. In that I believe it started with Final Fantasy VII because it was strongly influenced by Evangelion, which had become a huge hit in the interim. And you had a point where with 7, previously Final Fantasy games and most big JRPG games were structured like novels. They had big, long, kind of sprawling stories that covered all this stuff. Starting with Final Fantasy VII structured itself like an anime series. It was like a couple of seasons of anime series. It was like episodic stories of things that did not really sprawl the same way. They were more focused on the characters. I think they poorly focused on the characters, but that's basically what they were doing. They were doing sort of these angsty character trauma exploration stories rather than kind of epic tales, which is what Suikoden did at the time, which is why I like Suikoden so much more than every other JRPG that's basically on PlayStation 1. It took years for them to stop doing that. And I think that Final Fantasy VII basically did irreparable damage to that subgenre because of doing that and getting back to sort of the large-scale epic novel idea took forever. Xenoblade Chronicles does that. Does the sprawling epic thing.
Yeah.
Skies of Arcadia did something similar to that. It was the first game in the first major JRPG I can recall post Final Fantasy VII where everybody seemed like they were having a good time for once. It's like how about that's all I wanted by the time Skies of Arcadia came out. I was like, can I get a JRPG in which the character that I'm playing wants to be playing the game I'm playing? Like, can someone enjoy the fact that they're doing something amazing
the
here?
The reluctant hero gets old.
Yeah,
after
get
a
in
while.
get in the robot, Shinji. Like, that's all I want you to do. It's funny though, because like the final part of Evangelion finally came out this Friday,
really?
Friday on Netflix. It was already out in Japan, but it was the movie, the fourth rebuild movie came out, and if you had gone back in time and told me that Evangelion would have a more satisfying ending than the Star Wars Skywalker saga, I'd have said you were crazy. But here we are.
Wow.
Evangelion ends better than Star Wars.
Wow.
Never thought I'd say it.
I'll check it out.
You got to watch the whole series first.
Yeah.
And the movie, and then the other 4 movies. And then you'll have the whole story.
That's not happening.
Then you're not going to understand any of those movies. I don't know if you were around when the first one came out. The first one came out, I saw the first rebuild Evangelion movie in Japan with no subtitles because it had just come out there that September.
No, I wasn't there.
I mean, I was... Oh, you were already at Game Trailers. That was 2007.
Yeah.
And I went and saw it in a theater by myself because no one else would go with me.
I would have went with you.
And I know, but it was packed. It was me and a whole theater full of teenage girls who were just there to see Kaoru.
Right.
Interesting. The hot young boy angel guy. And it was fun because the first one was a full remake of kind of basically the first half of the first season, or the first half of the series, really. And so I knew what was happening because I'd seen the series so much, so I didn't need the subtitles.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, one of them would say something that was clearly different, or something would be changed, and the whole audience would go, "Oh!" Like everyone would like react to it, and I'm like, "What? What did they say? What happened?" Like,
that's funny.
It's like this one white dude sitting in this theater watching this with all these like anime fans from Japan, and I'm just like,
that's great.
And every once in a while, someone would be like,
that's great.
Who let him in?
Yeah. That was a good place to see it, though.
It's fun. Oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, there were originally supposed to be 4 of them, and the 4th one just came out this week.
That's crazy. That's a long time.
14 years later.
Wow. That's a slow play, as they say.
The reason I compared it to Star Wars is because we're talking about time spans that are about.
It works out.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a fun topic. I enjoyed doing that. We only touched on like 8 franchises. There's a lot more that we could talk about. However, I think for the rest of the month, we're going to be loaded with games. So we may come back to this on another rainy day. I had a lot of fun discussing this stuff, taking a walk down memory lane with a lot of these franchises. But now it's time for our second attempt at Name That Game. I pretty much blew it last week. I'll just take full...
I expect the clue this time to be like, this game was on a disc.
So last week, okay, for those of you maybe who didn't watch last week or haven't watched the archive, essentially what this is you are trying to guess the game that I am hinting at. And I'm covering this paper very carefully because I still wonder if Matt saw it last week.
No, other people in the chat got it too.
They did. You're right. People got it on the first clue last week, and I learned a lot
Partly
of lessons.
was your delivery.
I know. I was putting emphasis on different syllables that helped, yeah. So I'm going to read these a little more dead this time, although I didn't do as many play on words with the clues. So essentially what's happening is you guys in chat are competing with Matt to come up with the name of the game. And I have a list of clues that I'm going to read, and whoever guesses it first will win. If one of our viewers wins, you will win a 6-pack of Sifted stickers that I will send anywhere in the world. If you do beat Matt and you come up with the name of the game before he does, make sure you either DM us here on Twitch, or you can DM me on Twitter, or you can DM me at sifted.net at Shane. Just make sure you approach me, give me your shipping address and your name, and we will get those stickers out to you as soon as possible. So, after last week, Matt guessed it on the first clue, which still blows my mind. And so did 2 people. I think at least one person in chat did.
Justin Horman definitely got it.
Yeah, which is impressive still, even though I did kind of give it away. So I did try to write the clues this week a little more cryptically, and I will read them a little differently so as to not give too many clues and just what is in the verbiage. You'll have to figure it out for yourself this time. So here we go.
Well, first you're going to want to catch up on the chat.
Yep. Let me scroll down to the bottom of the chat here. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think other people enjoyed that topic as well. Cool. As I said last week, any ties go to you guys, go to the chat. And Matt is willing to accept that. If Matt,
I don't get any stickers for this.
He doesn't. So, yeah. He's already been given stickers and shirts and everything else. He has everything he needs. So if Matt comes up with the name of the game, I will look over to our chat and I'll give you guys a couple beats. And if somebody answers it within those couple beats, you guys will win. Otherwise, Matt will be the champ. Justin Horman won last week. He won the first episode of Name That Game. We'll see who can take it in week 2. Okay, here we go. Clue number 1. And some of these clues I'm speaking as if I were the game, which I found to be quite fun. Here's the first clue. Are you guys ready? Get ready to type. Let me make sure I'm at the bottom of the chat here just in case. Should I put the chat up for people so they can see it?
Yes.
Okay.
More interesting than looking at us.
Speak for yourself, Kyle. Okay. I just snorted. First clue. And I never do that. I was released in 2010, and one of my biggest features would be right at home with one of the biggest kids' toys from the 70s. Oh, wait. I have sound effects, too. I have a ticking clock sound effect that only they can hear. Bueller. Bueller. Anyone Bueller? Okay, we got some guesses. Disney Infinity, Guitar Hero, Spyro Sky Thing, U-Draw, Toy Story 3, Skylander. Nope. You guys are all wrong. All right. We made it to the second clue this week. I like that. Final Fantasy 13, Transformers. Nope. You guys are all wrong. All right.
From the 70s. Transformers are not from the 70s.
They're not.
No.
Here's the next clue.
I'm from the 70s.
This one might give it away now that I'm reading it. So be ready. Iron Man 2? No. Sorry. Here's the next clue. Let me get the clock sound effect ready. I received great reviews, but sales never matched the name of the studio that created me. G.I. Joe? No. Was there a G.I. Joe video game? Star Wars Force Unleashed? No.
Yeah, there was a G.I. It was a very bad G.I. Joe video. There were several bad ones.
I'll read that one more time. I received great reviews, but sales never matched the name of the studio that created me. Titanfall? No. All right. I did a better job this time. I'm starting to figure it out. Bayonetta? No. Okay. Here we go. Clue number 3. This one I think will definitely give it away. A gaming icon was at the helm of my development, but he had to change residences to work on the project. Tick tock, tick tock. Not Monopoly, Sneaky. Tick tock.
That's not Knack.
Kingdoms Amalur, no. Knack, no. Wow, I really thought that one would give it away. I'll read this one again. A gaming icon was at the helm of my development, but he had to change residences to work on the project. Fable, no. Wii Music, no. Oh, I did a much better job this time.
The only thing I'm thinking of is Epic Mickey.
Nope, not Epic Mickey.
But,
Okay, going to the next clue. The lead character's first name is the same as one of Sifted's former TriCaster technical directors. The lead character's first name is the same as one of Sifted's former TriCaster technical directors. And you better be a Sifted OG to know that. Blue Dragon, nope. 2010, yep. It's 2010. Not Donkey Kong. I did a much better job this time. Enslaved, nope. Uncharted, nope.
No, we've never had a Nate. Have we?
Nope. Prince of Persia, nope.
Alpha Protocol, no, we never had a Gabe.
Alpha Protocol, nope.
Serious Sam.
Serious Sam. Deadly Premonition, nope.
Yeah.
Splinter Cell, nope. All right, we're moving on to the next clue. I like
Death
this.
Spank. Jesus.
Death Spank. I don't even know what that is.
There were a couple of those. That was a sort of a Diablo-ish thing.
Okay. All right. We only have, after this clue, there's only one more. So you guys have to get this soon. I think this one maybe you will get it from. I have been bundled together or discussed in connection with my bae at different times.
Vanquish. I think it's 7 seconds. I think he got it.
Okay, Cinetike, you got to be honest with us. It is Vanquish, by the way. But you're going to have to be honest with us. It was so close that I honestly don't know if you got it before Matt. So just be honest and let us know if you heard it from Matt before you guessed it. Okay, so other people are saying that he got it first. Oh, he says, give it to Matt. I Googled it. Okay.
Wait, so what's his name?
Sam Gideon.
Sam? Okay.
Yeah. So let me go through the clues now.
I thought I knew the Residence thing was a reference to Resident Evil, but I couldn't figure out what that meant.
I'll go through the clues again, and I think it'll become more clear.
I didn't realize Mikami had to move to make this game.
Well, he didn't. Changed residences. Resident Evil. So anyway, let's go through the clues again real quick. I was released in 2010. One of my biggest features would be right at home with one of the biggest kids' toys from the 70s. Do you get that now?
No.
Slip and slide. Slide mechanic. That's the first clue. It has to be really hard to figure out. Second one, I received great reviews, but sales never matched the name of the studio that created me. Platinum.
Yeah, I got that.
Again, and somebody guessed Bayonetta from that, and I was like, oh, they're going to get it, and they never got it. A gaming icon was at the helm of my development, but he had to change residences to work on the project. That's obviously a reference to Mikami with Resident Evil. The lead character's first name, Sam. No, you guys guessed Sam. You forgot all about poor Sam.
You can't imagine why.
It hasn't been that long.
I mean, I forgot that character's name was Sam.
Oh, okay.
Like he's not a memorable character.
You got to realize that I'm doing this knowing that they're Googling.
Right.
So it's like, okay, if they start adding all these little things together and they're Googling it, eventually, like I thought if they knew the name, they would get it immediately. But they didn't. I have been bundled together or discussed in connection with my bae at different times, Bayonetta. And then the final clue was I have been heralded as innovating the third-person cover-based shooter. And that, I think, would have totally given it away. So there you go. It's Vanquish.
Clearly win back.
Yeah, it could have been win back, but with all the other clues.
Not in 2010.
Yep. So there you go. We'll give it to Cinetike. Sounds like, even if I write these questions knowing that you guys are going to Google. So that's totally fair game. And if you're saying you got it in before Matt answered, then you totally won. Cinetike, send us a message here on Twitch, or send me a message at sifted.net, or send me one on Twitter at Dinfire, and we will get your 6-pack of stickers out to you ASAP. Congratulations and good job beating Matt. Was that better than last week, you think?
I don't agree with the slip and slide thing, but
okay.
It's fine.
What was wrong with the slip and slide thing?
Because I would never have just defined the mechanic of Vanquish along those lines. I would never make that connection between slip and slide and the fact that you do that. I don't know.
I mean, that's what the game's known for.
Yeah, but I don't slip and slide.
You never would have thought of slip and slide.
You're doing too much jump work between that and slip and slide. Like he's not sliding down wet plastic. He's just sliding. Like that, I kept thinking about like for a second I was like lawn darts, like
jarts,
like it's something like dangerous 70s toys. I was trying.
Well, again, there was no way I was going to let you guys get it with the first clue. There was a vague possibility someone could have got it, but they didn't, and so it actually made it to the next to last, which is great. Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime. Let's get to a couple questions here before we tune out for the week. Eth Demon, I know you're not really your space in gaming, but what's your take on the mass exodus that is occurring from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV?
My take is that Final Fantasy XIV is a better video game.
Yeah.
Like there's more happening there. Like it's not stagnant. They're doing new things. The writing on the new stuff is reputedly exceptionally good. They offer a lot of ways to get through it. The world is more compelling. I think just walking around the world of Final Fantasy XIV is more interesting than Azeroth ever was.
Yeah.
And this is me praising Square Enix. Like I'm not going to do that for free, but like I don't blame anyone who feels that they've seen everything World of Warcraft has to throw at them, and now they want to try this new thing.
I mean, I don't play MMOs at all. Never have. Probably never will. And I don't hear anyone talking about World of Warcraft.
No.
I hear people talking about Final Fantasy XIV
Yeah.
all
14
the
comes up a
time.
lot.
I see you guys talking about it in our chat.
Yeah. 14 is one of the
time.
biggest turnaround stories I can recall of anything
Yeah.
in this industry ever.
It doesn't surprise me at all to answer your question. When you add on top
I think
all the stuff that's been going on
right,
in Blizzard
that
and
too.
Activision.
But also, I think a lot of people that play World of Warcraft have been waiting for something else to jump to.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Something of a comparable quality to Warcraft in its heyday.
Yeah.
And I think 14 is there or better at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, the only other viable option really is like Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, and that's not.
It's not.
It's not the same thing. It's not on par.
Yep. Sneaky, Shalid, Shanake. I love Bloodborne, but no matter how much I try, I will never beat the first boss. If it gets a remake, should it have an easier mode? I can't get good. I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole right now. The get good rabbit hole.
I think
we've discussed it many times.
Right. I think easy modes for those games would be fine.
Yeah, me too.
Just if you don't like it, don't play them.
We're one of the rare gaming podcasts that are 100% okay with easy modes.
Yeah, tons of games have easy modes, and
provided they still give you the more challenging option. They don't.
But
take
why
that
wouldn't
away.
they?
Yeah.
Tons of games have easy modes, and I've never played them because I don't play on easy mode. But it doesn't bother me that they're there. It's ridiculous.
Zet Saber Juno, he's asking us more on the remake or new game stuff for different franchises. I don't want to answer those yet because we'll probably do that topic again, and we want to save those franchises for later on. But I'm glad that you guys are asking questions about it because it means it engaged you guys and you liked it. So that's a good sign. The Big Smoke 82. What did you guys think of the latest CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk 2077 stream for the new patch? I did not see it.
Neither did I.
It was terrible. But I mean, the fact that we didn't watch it tells you something, right? It means that we've checked out on that game already.
I uninstalled it. Like I'll get around to it.
I finally did. It was terrible considering they used to have the slick PR presentations, and now this looked like an indie dev promoting their early access game instead of one of the biggest developers in the world. So strange and awkward to watch. Okay, so now that you've described it and you've filled us in on what actually it was, and that is a little surprising because remember they had those pre-produced things for a long time that were very slick, but maybe they're like, well, we had a marketing company produce those, and now we got to do them ourselves, and this is about as good as we can get. Or maybe they just don't want like a lot of hype around the game anymore.
I mean, I can certainly understand why you wouldn't want it to be too slick, considering what happened.
Yeah,
like you want to be pretty open and kind of naked about it, I guess. At this point, it's just like, look, you let me know when you're ready to put that patch out, the next gen update out, and I will reinstall the game and try it again. But until then, I don't want to hear about it.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right move. They probably just don't want to draw much attention to themselves at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah. EDH420, did you promote the Mario Maker Shane versus Sifted this weekend? I did at the beginning of the show. Again, just a reminder, this Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I will be playing your Super Mario Maker 2 levels. So go create one right now, and I will play it on Saturday. Stay tuned to our Patreon and sifted.net for more information on that. This is going to be a stream that's not just for people at a certain pledge level. It's for everyone. And you don't have to make a level just for me. It would be cool if you did, but you don't have to. If you just have a level that you're really proud of and you'd like me to play it, I will. And I only play each one 10 times. So just keep that in mind while you're working on stuff. Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime. 26 months in a row. That is awesome. I really appreciate that. Or a 10-month streak. 26 months. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, there's a bunch. From Vincent, do you think Axiom Verge 2 would have been better received if it was Axiom Verge subtitle? Does this disappointment make you more or less concerned for Hollow Knight Silksong, another indie Metroidvania that's getting hyped to the moon? I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't played Axiom Verge 2, but I've watched it. and just watching it turned me off. It just doesn't look exciting, and it doesn't look like the same game that I played that was the original. So that's what turned me off. It's not really that it's called 2, but it's really a prequel, but it's really not a prequel. Even the developer couldn't really say whether it was really a prequel or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like he's like, it exists in the same world, and we're running alongside, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay, whatever, buddy. That doesn't matter to me. What about you, Matt?
No, not really. I would still be bored playing it. I just maybe wouldn't have had the same expectations about what Axiom Verge 1 was. As far as Hollow Knight, like it's a completely different team, completely different beast. Also, like Hollow Knight, well, I'm not as over the moon about Hollow Knight as a lot of people are. Like, I can already see Hollow Knight Silksong and look at it, and there's interesting things for me to look at.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be bored looking at that game the way I am with Axiom Verge 2.
I mean, y'all watched that B-roll. Did it look very exciting to you? It really didn't.
I mean, look, I like Axiom Verge 1 as well, but it's like Hollow Knight blows it out of the water visually. I mean, it's I have a fondness for the pixel art thing, this the 16-bit look, but like not compared to something like Hollow Knight. Like that's a whole different artistic achievement to me.
I'd agree. Let's see. The Fox and Crow. Have you ever struggled to strike a balance with video games as a hobby? I really had to force myself, and I'll get this up on screen. This is a long one. I've really had to force myself to diversify my activities outside of work, but it often feels like an uphill battle. Many have said to me, well, it's the same as watching a lot of TV or film, but I wonder whether the huge amount of stimulation makes the medium uniquely addictive. Great question, man. It's one of the best questions we've had on here in a while. Yes, I have. I've struggled. We've talked about gaming addiction before and whether we thought we were like gaming addicts. And that was a pretty spirited discussion, if I remember correctly. I remember I said that, yes, at certain points in my life, I did feel like I was addicted to games. There have been times in my life where I played video games at my detriment. Either I skipped out on social activities that would have been good for me or enriching for me, or stuff that I had looked forward to and decided I wasn't looking forward to it anymore because I'd rather play a video game. I've done that. I've shown up late to stuff that I wasn't supposed to show up late to. I have ignored my wife or my girlfriends in the past to play video games. Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with it at times to control it. And that's why I made it my job. That's not true. This even happened after it was my job. And I think that's part of a struggle that you go through when you work in the industry, is you kind of have an built-in excuse to act this way. And everyone around you views that as a valid excuse because they're like, yeah, that's what he does. He didn't make it to the club tonight because he's playing some game he has to review or whatever. It's odd that even people in your life begin to look at that as like a valid excuse. So they're almost like become enablers in a way. But I have definitely spent time playing games at the detriment of other things I probably could have been doing in my life. What about you, Matt?
No.
Yeah, I think that's what you said last time too.
I've always done multiple things. Obviously played a lot of games. Not since I was a kid, like younger. Obviously when I was a middle school, high school, I'd play games instead of doing homework, that kind of thing. But if I wasn't into video games, I would have read instead or watched movies instead of doing homework. It wasn't about the games. It was about the other thing I didn't want to do. I don't think I've ever skipped a social activity to play a video game instead. And I read in movies and comics and board games. I didn't
even address that whole other part of his question.
Yeah, I do tons of other things besides games. Obviously, games have taken up a huge chunk of my time because, like you said, that's what I ended up doing for a living. But I don't, and I'm sure certain girlfriends would disagree at times. Right. But like I don't do a lot. I have never really used it as that kind of like thing. I have to go back and play this. Other than like the first day or two of something I'm excited about that just came out, I have always tried to make it a point that if someone needs me or especially girlfriend needs something or wants it, I was like, I will just stop. I'll stop and engage with a human being instead. And a lot of times that there's usually kind of a synergy that comes about where it's like she wouldn't bother me when I'm playing games and because I wouldn't bother her when she was. I mean, I've always been a little lucky in that most of the women I've dated have been gamers in some degree, or at least understood why I liked video
mine have
games.
never been really gamers, but they've understood.
Yeah. Like I've never. I mean, obviously, why would I be with someone who's just like, games are stupid? Why would anyone play a video game? It's just like that. We're not going to get along at all. Let alone.
I think Generation X, our generation, is the first generation where women got it.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think if you're our parents, though, not so much.
Well, I wasn't. My mom understands it, and my dad. That was the problem. It's not necessarily by gender lines. Like there are women who have played video games going all the way back to the first arcade games. Like, remember, it wasn't until
I played them with my sister when I was a kid.
Yeah, my sister likes them too. My sister had Game Boys and stuff. It wasn't until if you go back to pre-Crash advertisement for video games are
always including
unisex.
Women. Yeah,
they're everyone included the whole family.
Yeah.
It was everyone. It's not until the NES had to launch and be launched as a toy. And when you launch that as a toy, the toy stores were like, well, is it a boy's toy or a girl toy? Because that's how they organize the toy setups in the retail space. And Nintendo picked boy toy because that's just what they figured would be a better chance of being successful. And that's where the idea that video games are for boys comes from, is that marketing decision.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the industry and marketing leaned into that real hard over the next 10 years or so. And that's sort of where we ended up. But it's never been really a big issue for me. It's become, honestly, these days it's more of an issue of me forcing myself to play stuff so I can talk about it on this show. I think if I wasn't on this show, I would be playing less video games than I have ever played in my life.
I was asked that on Ask Shane Anything. The new episode's up now for our patrons. They were like, what would you be playing if you weren't doing this as your job? And I was like, I'd be playing probably all the big budget stuff. I wouldn't be playing as much multiplayer. I wouldn't be playing as many indie games.
Yeah. If I had nothing, no professional responsibility to games right now, I would be done with Mass Effect Remaster Collection right now. Frankly, I'd be playing that. I would be probably dipping into a couple of older games I like to play. I'd be probably playing Saints Row 4 still right now. But I wouldn't really be forcing myself to keep up with everything and paying a whole lot of attention. Honestly, I'd probably be leaning on Rob Manuel to tell me about any indie stuff I'd missed. Like
Game Manual in our chat.
Game Manual in the chat. He was in there.
Trust
earlier.
the man on indie games. He knows what he's talking about.
Trust him. Don't listen to us.
He definitely
talk to him
knows
about
what he's talking about.
Yeah, like that. It would be, I've diversified things more, and it's not a comment on the industry now. It's not like I think games are bad now, or I think they're better than they've ever been. It's just, like very rarely does a game hook me and not let me go, and just that's all I want to do right now. Like the last thing I can think like that was probably Ghost of Tsushima. Like I played Ghost of Tsushima like a fiend when that game. I could not stop playing that game. I still
do that with tons of games. Just get into them and just don't stop.
Doesn't happen. I mean, I did that with Saints Row 4, just in terms of I love that game. I can't explain. Or like No Man's Sky. I played No Man's Sky for 1,000 hours.
You definitely did that with
over the
that
last
game.
5 years.
Yeah.
Like easily across all saves, easily 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
And I still go back to it every once in a while. I got that Indium isn't gonna mine itself. I gotta sell some stuff. So yeah, but it would be a rarer thing. It would be better balance. I'd probably be watching more movies, frankly, because I feel I'm way behind on movies these days because of devoting time to games.
Yep. Okay. That's it for GameFace 268. Another great episode. Thanks to all your great questions. EDH420, thank you for Twitch Prime coming in at the last minute. Don't forget, this Saturday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm playing your Super Mario Maker 2 levels. Get them done. Get them in. Also, officially, last call for Pactor Factor questions right now. You have about an hour from the time I leave the studio until I get home to start compiling them to get your questions in. Twitter, Sifted, Patreon, tons of places where you can submit your questions. Get them in, though. There's only about an hour left before I have to get all my stuff together and get the shoot together for tomorrow. But I think that's it. I think next week we're here on Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at our usual time, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. The following week, it's going to be in flux. Make sure you follow us at Sifted Games on Twitter. Also, another note, if you've been following me on Twitter at Dinfire to get information about like what's happening with Sifted, is GameFace going live? Is the archive of GameFace up? Is the free version of GameFace up on YouTube now? Follow Sifted Games to do that. This past week was the last week I was retweeting any of that stuff on my personal account. It's time to use my personal account for what it's supposed to be used for instead of a promotional tool for Sifted. At this point, if my followers on my personal account haven't gone over to Sifted, then they don't care. And they're just annoyed that I keep promoting Sifted stuff through my personal account. So that's going away. So make sure you follow us at Sifted Games. If you're listening to this show out on any of the podcast services, and we're on all of them, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, hey, I'd like to have a podcast version of it, go down into the description. We have links to one click, hook up your podcast feed on all the services. We're on all of them. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all of them. And there are links to that in the description. If you want to support the show, and we can always use the support, we always need it, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. You can pledge $1, $1 million, whatever you want, whatever you can afford. We'll appreciate every single dollar that you contribute. So we'll be back next Tuesday. Everyone have a good week. GameFace is up and out.